I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. People don't believe that. I am peace.
A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for a man who wants to end wars, not start them.
We do not want war with Iran. We actually want peace. The Iranians are clearly not very good at war. Perhaps they should follow President Trump's lead and give peace a chance.
Kamala's campaigning with warmongers like Liz Cheney. How do you think that is? She picks Liz Cheney, whose father virtually destroyed the Middle East. You know, Liz Cheney, she talks big, oh, I want war. She always wants war. Every time I was with her in the White House, we should attack this nation, that nation, nations that people never even heard of, we should attack. She's a big tough guy. She sits back in Washington, oh, we ought to go and attack Iran, Iraq, we're going to attack everybody. That's why I broke up with her. All she wanted to do is go to war with everybody. These war hawks, they want to draft your kids to die in wars, and they will never fight themselves. You know, we'll stay around the country for 15 years, just bomb the hell out of everybody, make everybody miserable. Nobody knows why we're there, you know, the wars that never end. These endless wars that we've been in, I've gotten us out of so many. We don't want to get into wars. We're tired of fighting. I'm the only president in the last 84 years that didn't start a war. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more wars, no more wars. We will have prosperity and peace. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Remember, I'm the president of peace. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. He's going to start a war. I said, no. My rhetoric is going to keep us out of wars, and that's what happened. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
All right, everybody, here we go. Today is Monday, August 24th, 2026. My name is Rob Carter. Welcome to the Future Number One podcast in America. Got a little green screen going on. This is not my father's condo, but we got to make do. Isaiah, you know what I mean? I'm in town in St. Louis for a funeral, so we have to play with the set just a little bit. I see that we're not on X. Did you see that? Buddy of mine sent me that already this morning.
I saw that.
Not on X. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if we can recover that, but show not currently on X. I'd like to get it on because we're going to play the interview.
Looks good to me. Yeah, looks good to me.
With G. Edward Griffin. It looks like it's good for you.
Yep. We got viewers also on both sides.
Starting to happen. I wonder if it was just down for a minute and then back up. All right. So we did an interview with G. Edward Griffin. Now, I don't know how many people know who G. Edward Griffin is. I think our audience knows who G. Edward Griffin is. I'm a huge fan. Got acquainted with his work maybe, several years ago. And I started going through all of the clips and all the conversation he had. He wrote a book about cancer and how to keep from getting cancer. And he's now 94 and a half years old. And he looks, I said to him when we first started, I said, wow, you don't look 95 years old. He goes, 94 and a half. 94 and a half, Rob. I said, okay, well, you don't look 94 and a half. That's pretty incredible. I said, you look like you're 65 years old. His brain and his mind and his cognitive ability is solid as steel. And I just think he's a very interesting character because he said, when we were talking offline, he started talking about, how he grew up and the things that were important to him. And we've talked about it on the show many times. He said the clothes that he wore, how he was perceived in society, whether he was successful or not. Then he started to get a hint of what was going on in the world. And he said, it changed my focus on how I perceived life. And we're going to get to that interview in just a bit. I loved it. I'm honored to have had the conversation with him because I think he is a living legend, much like the, USS Liberty vets. These are living legends that are nearing, they're in the backstretch of life, if you will. The final couple laps, I say, you just at that age, you have a legacy to fulfill and you try to get information out there. And I thought he was brilliant. So we'll play that interview here in just a bit. I want to give everybody an update of what we're going to be doing this week. On Tuesday, tomorrow, I'm going to do an interview with Bishop Joseph Strickland. If you're a Catholic, you know who Joseph Strickland is. This is going to be very interesting for a lot of people. I'll do an interview with him today. We'll put it on tomorrow morning. He's going to be in town on September 12th down in Clayton. We'll talk about that here in a bit. Probably next couple of weeks, we'll start promoting the event that he's going to have in Clayton. He was on Tucker Carlson recently. The Pope took his archdiocese away from him, and just a very influential figure in Catholic circles. And I can't wait to have that conversation with him, and then we'll put that out tomorrow. We'll also have Democrat Ashley Awney on tomorrow. I've had her in when I did the radio show, and I think she's a very interesting person, so I can't wait to hear what she has to say about. I'm going to ask her a lot about Democrat and Republican politics. I ask everybody about that now, and I think most people are starting to recognize something just isn't right between this Democrat Republican back and forth. Something doesn't feel right about it. So we'll talk to her tomorrow as well. We've got Robb Workman on. He's I would say a show regular. He talks about what Wi-Fi can do to the human body. My buddy Derek went through this. He's a big, strong, very athletic guy, and all of a sudden he's having all kinds of medical problems, and he can't figure it out. And I was freaking out about it. This is my childhood closest friend in the world, and I call him every day. You all right, man? He goes, no, I'm sitting in the tub again today. My back, my legs, my arms. He goes, I can't sleep. It feels like my whole body's falling apart. And he couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. He's going to the doctors. They want to tell him this, doing that. And it's just, it's diet. It's not diet. And he's starting to panic about it. And then he said he heard me talking to Robb Workman about what Wi-Fi can do to the body. And he said, I go over to his home, and he walks out his garage door, and he points, and he's got a 5G tower. I'm literally right on top of his home.
Yeah.
And it's just right there. It's right across the street, right on top of his home. And he goes, I wonder if this is what's been making me sick. And I said that to Robb Workman. He said, of course. He goes, some people are more susceptible than others, but Wi-Fi and, this 5G and all the stuff that we have going on is destructive to the body. And he goes, there's 60, 70 years of information about it that you just don't know. The information is out there. It's just that, if you're working for a big utility company or you're in that game, you certainly don't want people to know that it can destroy their bodies. And he goes, but the information is out there. So we'll talk to him on Wednesday. We have Dr. Shiva coming on Thursday, and I believe we have somebody on Friday, but I'm traveling. I didn't have my schedule with me. We've got a lot of good guests coming up. It's been wonderful. I've been even going back and forth with Kurt Weldon, Isaiah. So we'll have Kurt Weldon on the show. It looks like he said he's in. So I got to get a hold of his booker. But Kurt Weldon, if you don't know, he was in Congress. He happened to be close with a fire chief in New York City prior to 9/11. Remember 9/11? They were attacked in 1993, Isaiah. I don't know how many people remember that, but the World Trade Centers were attacked in 1993. He became familiar with the fire chief through those circumstances and became good friends with him. He says that 9/11 was not what was sold to us, and that he has information. He's been trying to make that information public for a long time. When you speak out about these things and you're in a position of power or influence, they take you out pretty quick. And he'll tell that story. We'll get him on hopefully within the next 30 days. We'll have Kurt Weldon on. He had a big show on Tucker Carlson. That was, Tucker Carlson does some interviews that just take off like crazy, and some aren't as big. He had a really powerful interview with Tucker Carlson. I saw it. I'd forgotten about the stories of Kurt Weldon, reached out to him, and he said he's more than willing to come on. I said, you know what? We're an independent voice. We need real conversation again, and we'd love to have you on because we're trying to start a media company where independent news eventually swallows corporate news. Corporate news is destructive to our society because it gives you information that you don't really need. It lies to you. It propagandizes you. It's destructive to our society because it's not news. It's wrapped up in news. And there are generations that believe that it is news, and they'll fight with you about information they have heard on the news. And I use news in quotation marks, but it's not news. It's propaganda. And they'll fight you on the propaganda that has seeped into their soul and they believe. And I think it's destructive to our society. Therefore, we must have a focus on independent voices who don't have a dog in the fight, Isaiah. We all have our opinions. There's things that I fight for, but ultimately what I'm fighting for is the Constitution. That's what I'm most interested in. I'm interested in the Constitution. If you take the Constitution out of play, we're no different than any other country. There's nothing to get excited about. There's no waving the flag. There's no going to war. If we do not protect our Constitution, if we don't live in a constitutional republic, if our people don't protect our constitutional rights, then ultimately we're going to be just like everybody else. It's just a matter of time. Okay. So let's start today because G. Edward Griffin, the reason I'm aware of G. Edward Griffin isn't the book, which he said he sold, I think, 1.5 million copies. That was the last question I asked him in the interview that's coming up. I said, how many books have you sold? And he said about 1.5 million. Okay. The Creature from Jekyll Island is a must read for young people. It explains the banking system in this country, history of the banking system in this country, and why you should pay attention to it. If you understand the root cause of war, the root cause of societal breakdown, if you understand how the game is played, then all of a sudden the world makes more sense to you. And if you're somebody who wants to know, I want to know. Some people don't care, Isaiah. How many
Mhm.
people think just don't even care what goes on in the world so long as they can watch Masked Singer and watch?
More than 50%.
I think so too. I think by closer to 80, 90%. I
Yeah.
really do. I don't think many
Yeah.
people necessarily care about what's going on in the world.
I would say 90%, but it's
Doesn't it feel like that to you though?
it's depressing to say that.
There it is. There's the Creature from Jekyll Island. That's his book. Great interview. We're going to play that interview here in just a minute. Before we do, I want to give everybody a sense of how I got lined up with G. Edward Griffin, and it was the Yuri Bezmenov interviews that caught my attention. And I talked about it a lot on my original podcast. I went podcast radio and been podcasting. Podcasting for me is so much better, Isaiah. I look back at the radio days and I like it. I like radio. I studied radio. I wanted to be a radio personality when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. That's what I went to school
Rush
for.
Limbaugh. I mean, everyone, that's
Yeah. And Rush Limbaugh wasn't my goal. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a sports announcer. And I think I would be, to be honest with you, Isaiah, and I mean this sincerely, if I was doing a Cardinals baseball telecast right now,
yeah.
I would do well. I know baseball inside and out. I understand I've been watching it for so long and studying guys like Jack Buck and Harry Carey. Chip Carey, by the way, is absolutely fantastic. The Cardinals announcer right now, enjoy him while you have him because he's fabulous. He's fantastic. But the ability to make a game interesting and exciting is something that I wanted to do when I was a kid. I used to.
Do you ever mute the TV and then just narrate it yourself?
I did it. So when I was a kid, about 13, 14, 15 years old, what I would do is I'd watch the game on television, and I'd get tape recorders back in the day. And then I would do the game by tape recording and listen to it back. I'm talking about 13, 14, 50.
Yeah.
This was my goal. I would love baseball and I love sports. So this is something I wanted to do. Then as I got older and I saw what was happening with COVID, I started to study politics. And my mindset is that if I study it, I get compulsive about things. I'll understand it as good as anybody. Might not be as quick as some people. There's very, very intelligent people that can get to things quicker than me. But if I immerse myself in something, I figure it out. And I really believe that I have a lot of what's going on in the world figured out. Not all of it. Even G. Edward Griffin says, I don't know everything, but I understand the premise of what's happening in the world. And I said, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it as well. So let's do this. Let's start with Yuri Bezmenov. This is clip number 6. And we'll play a little bit of this. He talks about the 4 stages that your country goes through before it's overtaken. And he does these interviews back in the 80s, and I think they apply today. He said, Marxism, when it's coming into your country, it has a staged process of overthrowing your country. Now, if you listen to G. Edward Griffin, he says this has been done long ago. And one of the things that caught my attention about G. Edward Griffin is I asked him whether we were a sovereign country, and he said, no, obviously we're not a sovereign country. And I keep saying that to friends and family.
No. Yeah.
You wouldn't possibly vote for the things that we have in this country. You wouldn't vote for open borders. You wouldn't vote for mandated vaccines. You wouldn't vote for continual war. You wouldn't vote for the indoctrination of your kids. You would not vote for these things. This is not what Americans are all about. But we can't get anything done politically. And the way they get away with it is they say, okay, it's the Democrats' fault. No, hang on. It's the Republicans. No, it's the Democrats' fault. And they just bounce this ping pong back and forth. But the train, which is globalism, control of resources, control of what the news relates to society. These things are controlled, which ultimately controls our society and puts us in this box where we fight each other and they steal $40 trillion and tell you how good it is for you. That's how the system is working. So let's just go into Yuri Bezmenov. This is, clips from G. Edward Griffin and Yuri Bezmenov back in the 80s. Let's check it out. Clip number 6.
Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate 1 generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is...
So when the military boot crashes his balls, then he'll understand it. Listen, we've talked about this a lot, right? My fascination is that with all of the obvious tyranny and corruption that is going on in this country, the American citizens don't do anything about it. They just don't do anything about it. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Now, hopefully, at some point, the American citizen will start to recognize that we're going in the wrong direction much faster than in the past. It's beginning to happen at a much faster pace. You know, the flock cameras, the surveillance of our citizens should be an indicator that we're in big trouble. The continual war, and then every president seems to be against war, even Donald Trump, as the pre-roll we played today. Everybody seems to be against war, but then we end up in war. No matter what, we end up in war. Why? Why does that happen? Why, if the American citizens don't go to war and they put President Trump in power because he says he doesn't want to go to war and makes fun of all the people that took us to the war and pokes his finger in the eye of those who continually create war, and then he gets into office in the second term and immediately goes to war with Iran? I wouldn't be, it won't be long, if you think about it, Isaiah. All of the people that Donald Trump was friendly with, he's now at odds with. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, people like this. And all of the people that he was scolding as war hawks, the Lindsey Grahams, the Ted Cruzes, now he loves them. Now they're his favorite people. And nobody seems to notice, and nobody seems to care on the Trump side. They just think it's 5D chess, and there's a big plan going on behind the scenes. And Rob, you just don't understand what's happening. And I'll just admit, I don't understand what's happening. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't understand why it makes sense to anybody. I just don't get it. I have good friends of mine who will argue with me until I'm spinning around in circles on text messages back and forth. And I think to myself, what are you fighting for? What do you now? If there is something going on with the global finance system, as Rick Babbitt says, that's one thing. But just because we're making we're protecting American banking interests, that doesn't mean it's going to filter down into the people. Why would you want a surveillance system and go, Rob, I don't do anything wrong. I don't care if they're surveilling me. Oh, okay, that's great. That makes perfect sense. And you'll see people start to say this when they say that when Israelites come over here and tell us that they're going to take away our free speech because free speech is dangerous. We go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Free speech, that could be a problem. I can see where that would be a problem. When they want to take your guns away, they go, security? Being able to protect your family, your home, and your property? It's not that big a deal. I mean, they cause more harm than good. Everything that the country is based on is being unraveled, and nobody seems to pay any attention to it. It's you got to admit it's a little bit bizarre, Isaiah.
Very.
All right, let's do this. We are going to play the interview. Well, let's do Jim Brewer first. Let me get him out of the way. Clip number one. Jim Brewer. The reason I have this out is Jim Brewer sees the world through the lens of the Rob Carter Show, Isaiah, and the people that
need to get him on the show.
We need to get Jim Brewer on the show. I don't know why he has not said he hasn't signed up yet, but we'll get him on sooner or later. Let's play this clip from Jim Brewer. Again, Jim Brewer is a comedian, and sometimes comedy makes people open their eyes just a little bit. Here's Jim Brewer talking about exactly what I'm saying. You see all the corruption around you. You watch what happened with COVID. You watch the borders being wide open. You watch all of these different things. So long as you're eating, so long as you have a roof over your head, so long as things are taped together for you, and I'm talking about America as a whole, we don't really make any movement anymore. And we have guns and all the opportunity to take care of our government, and we do nothing. It seems odd, but I guess when it gets so bad that we just can't live anymore, then we'll get excited, and then we'll organize, and then we'll do something. I'm hoping through People's Lobby Missouri, we do it just a little bit quicker than that. But here we go. This is Jim Brewer. Check out what he has to say.
Only people in the world that's petrified of our government. It's really funny. We, the people with the most guns and heavily armed defenses in the house, are by far the most easy to push over and keep quiet and docile, probably in the entire world. And they got you sold that, we're the brave. No, because you've already been told you're run by pedophiles. You've already been shown you're run by pedophiles. When you asked your leader, your president, hey man, what's going on Epstein files? He said, and I quote, oh, we're still talking about that? And people blindly are like, oh no, he's doing great in other areas. He basically told you, yeah, no, this is, they watch you and listen to you 24/7. We can do this all day. Like, oh God, the flock cameras. Oh God, they didn't do this. Oh God, they're spraying the skies. Oh God, what's going on in Iran? We're doing nothing about it. You're still waiting for the ball game. You're still waiting for the next trade. You're still like, who cares? We're giving our power over to people we don't know and government officials we just don't know.
Dead on the money. And it's exactly how I see it. It's what we talk about all the time. Did you see, by the way, before we get G. Edward Griffin's interview rolling, did you see that Jake Lang got arrested over the weekend?
I did.
We talk about if you're paying attention to the because one of the movements that you'll start to notice, and again, the reason I like Charlie Kirk is because he said my pattern recognition is good. My pattern recognition is very good as well. It's just something that baseball is all through patterns, and I coached baseball for years, and I did really well at it without ever playing college baseball. But I coached against major league ball players all the time and had my way with them because pattern recognition is how you are good at coaching baseball. Everything. If you bet on baseball, every time a pitch is made, the odds change. And you'll have 250 pitches in a game and the odds change because you have to understand where things are heading. You have to have seen it before and recognize the patterns of things in order to be good at it. And Jake Lang is this J6 guy who's instigating trouble up in Dearborn, Michigan. And people say, Rob, what are you for, the Islamists? Are you for Sharia? No. Hang on. What I'm saying is it's election time. And when it's election time, you have agent provocateurs who will go out into society and they will begin to create fights, arguments, public displays, and then the news media comes in and you see the fighting back and forth. He had a sign that said, I love black people, but I hate the N-words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So do you think that's going to cause a little bit of a problem? If you don't think it's going to cause a problem, they'll already have the ready-made people to cause the problem for you. And then they'll get the fighting back and forth and all the chaos. And then it'll go on television and you'll say, the Muslims are taking over the world, vote for the Republicans. It's just political theater, obviously. I mean, they've been doing it for so long. You think it's the boomer class, quite honestly. The young people they understand it. But the boomer class, it's been, and it's not their fault necessarily. And I don't mean to be, what's the word for it? I don't mean to be an a-hole about it. I really don't. I fell into it. So I just think that people that have had that conditioning going on for 50 years, it's so a part of what they believe that trying to say, wait a minute, this is being fostered for you. This is these are orchestrated con jobs meant to shape your opinion and shape your perception of what's really going on. It's not organic. It's astroturf. It's fake. It's put together for the TV cameras and people like Fox News. The reason you can know that Fox News is a BS organization is look, they got a guy dressed up as Spider-Man who comes in to start taking swipes at him. Right? This is just
You can't make that up.
well. Look at January 6th.
Yeah.
I have all of my friends telling me I was a part of an insurrection, a violent insurrection. And I say, wait a minute, you think that January 6th was a violent insurrection? Let me explain it to you like this. Do you think that if the protesters wanted to take over the United States Capitol on January 6th, 2021, that it would be I used to say this, an unarmed insurrection led by a guy dressed up as a Viking? Do you honestly believe that? And if you do, then you need medication. But don't take the medication because that might make you even more violent. You need something. You need therapy of some sort. You need to come out of that haze that you're living in and recognize that that entire operation on January 6th was made for television to freak everybody out, going, oh my God, they're going to take over the Capitol. Look at these crazy people. And then, of course, nothing ever happens except Josh Hawley runs out in fear. Okay? Nothing happens. It's all fake. It creates storylines for the news to sell to their unsuspecting viewers. Sad. And we got to get out of that circle. We have to get out of that circle at some point. You have to have real journalists, people that ask real questions to people in power. You must put them in check. And once we put them in check, once people start to hear these people answer very difficult questions, that's why we're going to DC here soon. We're going to ask some very difficult questions of these people. And I cannot wait to do it. I just can't wait. You're going to see people scramble. You're going to see them back up. They're not going to be able, they know the staged answers to the dopey questions. It's the real questions when you ask them. Remember when I asked Thomas Massey, Isaiah? And I said, he looked over me like, what kind of question is that?
I've never gotten this a good question.
Right. Never had a good question before. This is very odd. He kind of looked at me. I remember when I asked him, I said, you said that you do not want to be a thespian in failure theater, insinuating that everything that goes on in DC is really scripted BS. And you've seen it 12 or 13 times since you've been in office, and it's just scripted nonsense. So when I quoted that to him and I said, what do you think? Is most of what goes on in DC scripted in advance? And he said, he looked over at me kind of like he couldn't believe I asked the question. He said, 99% of what goes on in DC is scripted in advance. What else do you need to know?
All the votes are counted.
All the votes are counted. They know exactly what they're going to do. If they want to get a piece of legislation passed, the donors convince everybody in Congress that this is what they're going to have to do to continue their donor money. They have their companions within the club schools write up the legislation. It goes through the process and it's done in advance. You don't have a say in that. The only say you'll ever have in your government is if you put so much pressure on them that they think they're going to die. That's it. They are going to have to worry about their own safety so that they start voting in terms and in a manner that would be beneficial to the American people. Until they have that threat, until they have that fear on a daily basis, well, they're going to take the money and run. Gone, take the money and run. You know that one, don't you, Isaiah?
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're going to do. Okay, here is our interview. You'll love this.
Before we go to that, someone was asking about this, and I thought it was a good segue just because you're talking about, theater before the election, right? Things like that. Someone had said Renaud 2.0 is their name. They said an hour ago, Trump announced 50% tariffs on trucks, car parts, and steel starting on January 1st, 2027. So just announced this morning. So he said it's in response to all these tariffs and the tariff war that he basically started with Canada. And it's just great.
It's all fake, though, Isaiah.
Exact. That's the point. Is just
how about this guy here? How about this genius here? We always have a few geniuses that pop in every now and then, no more than everybody. BS, you're fake. Tell the dead cops it's fake, you fake ass. Well, there are no dead cops, dumbass. Yeah, none of them. No cops died on January the 6th. None. Zero.
You know who did die? A civilian.
Yeah, 5 civilians died, Frank.
Yeah,
idiot. I was there. I don't know what happened. I watched it with my own eyes. I took video of the entire operation. I saw Antifa work in advance. Antifa, by the way, these are contractors, I would guess, from the federal government that create problems for your television screens. I just don't like when people are so dumb. It's just bothersome to me, and they cannot figure out that what's being fostered for them is fake. It's just they're never going to see it. I talk about it in this interview coming up. They cannot and will not, under any circumstances, see reality. They're going to live in the perceptions that were crafted for them by corporate news. That's it. They'll never be able to get out of that cycle. It's depressing. All right. I apologize for calling you an idiot. You're just not very smart. Idiot's probably too strong a word. Okay. Not too perceptive, not too you know what I'm saying. All right, let's play this interview. This is G. Edward Griffin, the legend G. Edward Griffin, 94, as he says, 94 and a half years old. Here's how it went on Friday with G. Edward Griffin. Check it out.
I did.
Okay, we're off and running.
All righty.
And it would be just a nice, easy conversation with you because I'm a huge fan. I really got interested in what was going on in the world because, I tell my audience, I was kind of a Fox News guy for a long time. Took me a while to understand that was primarily just advertising propaganda, and it wasn't the real behind the scenes what's going on in the world. And I started paying attention to old clips. People were saying you should read your book. So I got your book. I started paying attention to what was going on in the world, and just started to follow things that you had been saying all the way back from I think the early '60s. You were talking about communism and how communism would how it could potentially take over our country. And it really opened my eyes to a whole new way of thinking about the world in general. So I guess I would just start with saying, I know you've talked about The Creature from Jekyll Island a million times, but what do you see going on in the world now with 94 years of life, all the things that you've seen? It's, to me, I'm only 56 years old. I look out into the landscape and I can't figure out what's going on anymore. I'm so confused about where reality begins and ends that I think it's just all mass propaganda to where you're confused as to what reality is. Do you have a sense of what's going on right now in the world? Doesn't it seem like everything is kind of inverted and upside down? What's your take on things?
Well, I think you described it pretty well. It's very confusing, first of all. And it's very confusing when you're not paying attention to what's going on, because then you're stuck with just the sound bites, and you're stuck with you're set up for propaganda. But it gets worse the more you know.
Right.
That's the amazing part. There's, oh my gosh, I didn't know about this. I didn't know about that. And then finally you come to the point. It's a very harsh turning point to realize that it's been all screwed up from even before you were born. This is not something new. It's been going on for quite a few generations, actually. It's a generational process. And it's hard to get your brain wrapped around that because in my case, I can only speak for that. I was born into the system. I thought it was the greatest country in the world. And it was, by the way. I felt very lucky. But I never thought that it was under attack. I thought, we won. We're a free country. We're the most powerful nation in the world. And we're on the side of truth and justice and all that. So why do I need to worry about it? It's all taken care of. And so I was, like most young people, all wrapped up in my personal life and my family, and that's perfectly logical and honorable. And I wanted to make a big splash in the world. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to do something that was worthwhile. And I became quite materialistic. I was concerned about how am I looking? Should I have a better car? I started succumbing to all the current trends so that I would be trendy.
Right.
People would like me, and all these things all the things that happen to young people. And I really didn't know what was happening to my country, and I didn't understand ideology. I didn't understand politics. I just thought that there were two political parties, and they were both pretty good, but one was better than the other, according to my upbringing, and that was about it. But I didn't worry about it because, after all, we had freedom of speech, we had freedom of press, and only good people in office. That was the big mistake. I hadn't realized yet that every institution, or any institution that acquires a lot of power over people through money or just influence. By that I mean if it's a very powerful corporation or a very influential religion, if it's an institution dominated by human beings, and regardless of what they claim they represent, I found out the long haul way is that those institutions with that kind of power become magnets to the predator class. And it doesn't take very long before every con artist in the world wants to be a politician or go to work on the payroll of a government agency, because there they feel that they have, an inside track. They can steal a little bit here and a little bit there and be rewarded for it if they can get away with it. And if they can be very successful, they can imprison those people who are trying to blow the whistles on them. And I never saw that until very, very late in my career. I thought that all of these people that were elected to office and appointed officials, judges included, I thought they were honorable people, because otherwise we Americans wouldn't have stood for it. We wouldn't have allowed it if there were criminals taking over our government. We wouldn't have allowed it. And of course, what I didn't realize is that that's exactly what was happening. And we allowed it because we didn't see it. We were hypnotized by the art of the flim-flammers.
Yes.
They lied to us, and we didn't believe they would be bold enough to lie about such things as war, anything like that, and what is right and wrong. And you wouldn't lie about that, would you? Well, all right, I'm meandering. So this is really the answer to your question. That, for me at least, it was a rude awakening. That really, the rude part started when I was about probably 40 years old. Now, the beginning started a lot before that, because I became somewhat concerned. I could look into the future and I could see some of the things that we now see around us. Those dark clouds that used to be on the horizon that we worried about are now overhead. And so it's a lot easier to see what they represent. But what I did not see is what I mentioned before, is that those dark clouds were placed there and originated long before I was born. And there were people in our government and other governments around the world who already had decided that the only way to conquer the world is to do it quietly and clandestinely. And that's when the idea of secret societies began to become very, very popular and very powerful, I might add. And everybody who belonged to a secret society, it seems like, at least those at the top. And I kind of laughed at them. At all secret societies, that's a bunch of bunk.
Right.
They go, I belonged to a fraternity when I went to school. That was not a secret society, but we had all that hocus pocus handshake and all the other stuff, which I didn't realize was borrowed from the real thing. And parts of it were very real, but we didn't know that.
Do you think that it's been one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because you've got a lot of longevity and a lot of experience in life? Do you think this is something that started with the Federal Reserve? Do you think that it was prior to that? Because everybody in my generation thinks the assassination of John F. Kennedy, there was a switch in just, it feels like intelligence agencies started to take over the country, and the politics became theater pretty much from that point forward, and you get to see a cultural change in the country. And then there are people that are older, much older than me, that say, no, things started to change with the Federal Reserve, started with the New Deal. Do you have a sense, has it always been like this, or do you think there was some event like the Federal Reserve that kind of changed the forward progress of freedom and liberty in this country?
Well, from my perspective, that long view of history that I've had a chance to walk through a lot of it and read up on a lot of it prior to my time, is that it goes way back, almost to the beginning, maybe to the very beginning of civilization as we think of it, organized tribal communities. I mean, where people belong to something that we would call a tribe or a nation, where large numbers of people gathered, many clans, many families, and then clans, and larger groups of people, until finally we call them nations. That process started way, way, way back. And I think it's even predates the pyramids, if you want to really go looking for it. But it evolved, and with the passage of time, at least in my view, that each generation in that long trek of history learned something, so that it could advance its cause of building a tyranny, a global tyranny, a global government, as they like to call it, governance, control of all people on the planet, which was always the goal from these. I guess some people would say they're not human even. And maybe they have a different origin than some of us. I don't know about that, but they're human enough to me. And I think most humans have this instinct we have to constantly guard against, that we want to dominate other people. If we get angry with them, we're gonna dominate them and so forth. We have to look out for our anger, for our bad judgment. And I think we have a little mixture in our blood of some good and some bad. And thank God we have cultures that constantly seem to be striving for the good and overpowering the evil part of what might be our human nature. Anyway, that's a little bit on the philosophical
Well,
side.
I got you. I get where you're coming from. I was going to ask you, do you think that we're a sovereign country right now? I make the argument all the time. It doesn't feel like we're sovereign anymore. It feels like it's global corporate interest, whatever's behind that, whether it be bankers or technocrats or what have you, whatever is whatever really makes the big decisions in the world. It doesn't feel like you have voting the way I thought about it. I thought, I'll go vote for this person, then we're going to make these changes. And I make the argument that we would not vote for the situation that we're in. We wouldn't vote for being $40 trillion in debt. We wouldn't vote to leave our borders open and having a complete invasion from people outside of our country during a terror war. We wouldn't vote for consolidation of media. We wouldn't vote for these types of things. So there has to be something bigger than what we see on our television sets on Fox News and CNN, that government that we see on television. Do you think it's an oligarchy system where big corporate interests that might have been around for generations?
Well, you're right to the point where I was heading.
Okay.
And, I'm glad you picked it up and galloped ahead, because that is exactly what I think. We are not a sovereign nation, and we haven't been for a long, long, long time. And some argument could even be made about it not occurring at the time of the American Revolution, because so many compromises were made with the banking interests in North America as well as in Europe. And as I go back and reread some of that history of that period of the American Revolution, I realize how many compromises were made for the financial interests that existed at that time and the banks. And of course, we had precursors to the Federal Reserve System twice before the Federal Reserve was founded. And in fact, we had one at the time of the Revolution. And right after the American Revolution, we had a Federal Reserve System under a different name. And we had to get rid of it, but we had it. And so when I realized and go back and reread those pages of history, there was a tremendous control already in existence that you didn't see on the surface, because it was financial. The influence took place in boardrooms. It arrived with the beginning of corporate structures and things like that. And I think the real beginning of the solidification of what you're talking about, where we literally were conquered, and I use that word advisedly, knowing full well what it means. We were conquered long before I was born, and you, and even my father and my grandfather. It happened a long time ago. And if I had to put a hard beginning on it, I would say it would be the arrival of Rhodes scholarships and Cecil Rhodes' secret society, which he spent his entire fortune on. And we know a lot about it because he had some biographers who judiciously wrote all about it, and we're very proud of what this secret society did. And the book was accidentally spilled over into the public sector, and they had to take it out and get rid of it. Well, that was Tragedy and Hope, of course, written by Carroll Quigley. Carroll Quigley was a college professor from Georgetown University, and he was retained by the secret society created by Cecil Rhodes. And the whole purpose of the secret society, we know about it because a lot of its records are now in public, in libraries, of course. You don't read about it on your newspaper, but they're in libraries, and the ancient documents show it very clearly. that show you an idea of how clever this was. Cecil Rhodes said, look, if we're going to take over the world, we can't do it in the old way with guns and bayonets and bombs and bullets. We have to take it over politically from the inside. We can't invade it with soldiers in uniforms speaking different languages. Oh, we need to do that to keep the image alive of this being a national contest. But in reality, said Cecil Rhodes, we will take over these countries quietly from the inside, using the banking systems and the influence of money and political power and influence. We will do it quietly. And we will all the while advocate the opposite of what we are doing. And so that people will choose us as leaders to oppose the very thing that we are doing. This was the secret society. And I'm not making this stuff up.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's in the record. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's in the record. And that kind of thing. It's endless. Just read Tragedy and Hope and you see a lot of it.
And I think you can see it, but I wonder how many people have the ability to see it. This is another thing I talk about on my show because I'm into Bernays and what Bernays taught about how a small group of people can control imagery, thought process, kind of move past logic and get into emotion. And I talk to a lot of people and I give them information as to what I'm seeing, and I recognize that a lot of people, I don't know if it's just conditioning of the mind, but they can't see what you and I see. And I see exactly what you're saying. It might be your influence on me, to be honest with you, because you had a big influence on the way I see the world. But as I start to see it, it seems kind of, I don't want to say obvious, but seems clear that what we think we know, what we've been conditioned to believe, and what we think of our society and our sovereignty and the stars and stripes and all the things. And I love the country just as much as you do. I mean, I'm the same way. We love the country. People always take that out of context, but we're not what we were sold. That was kind of an image that we were sold. And you can kind of see how there's almost a shadow government behind the scenes that really controls the day.
Not almost. Remove the word almost, and you got it. It is a shadow government.
I agree with you 100%. But I don't think that that you can talk to 8 out of 10 people and kind of walk them through the history of what's going on and say, pay attention to this, read this, and you'll come to that conclusion. Some people just can't get there. And I don't know if it's they don't want to get there. They don't want to be there because it makes them uncomfortable, or if they just can't see it. Like, I really can't explain it. Have you witnessed that through the years? Because you've been rattling the bell for a long time.
Oh, yes. It's a common condition. In fact, it's our weakest point that people don't want to see it. I didn't want to see it. I still don't want to see it, but I see it. And so, once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Correct.
And once the bell is rung, you cannot unring it. And that's our hope, by the way, because I've seen in my lifetime, I would hate to put a number on it, but I'm sure it's well over several thousand people who reluctantly had to take a good look at reality and say, yep, I see it. And of course, they're not very happy about it, and they become grumpy old men like myself. And but they continue talking about it because we've got to expose it. Not only expose it, but we've got to defang it. We've got to remove its power. We've got to find out who the people are that have been infiltrated into our trusted positions and who are betraying our trust to them, and remove them from office. Because as long as they're in office, nothing is going to change. One of the biggest telltales of this phenomenon is the fact that in the last couple of years, probably 5 years or thereabouts, the momentum of exposure of what's going on has greatly increased. And it's easy today to pick up even your daily newspaper. It might have a lot of propaganda in it, and the twisting and who are the good guys and the bad guys are often reversed. But in spite of all that, you can see how extensive the pollution and the corruption has gone in our government. I mean, the Epstein files, for example, and all of the child pornography and the child trafficking and other things, and the amount of money that's being created out of nothing and spent on private projects that will profit private individuals and organizations, and the taxpayers are being forced to pay for it. We see the hundreds and hundreds of, now billions of dollars being created out of debt, which means out of nothing except a promise to pay it back, which is our promise to pay back what they borrowed. And so we can see the corruption now everywhere you look. But nothing changes, does it?
No.
It doesn't change because the people are still in charge of the whole show who created it in the first place. We are relying on the people who created this mess to correct the mess. Oh, so there's a problem with the Federal Reserve. Well, let's see what the people at the Federal Reserve have to say about a solution for this. That's our attitude, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, well, the Republicans and the Democrats agreed on all these banking bills along the years. It's bipartisan cooperation on all this inflation and money out of nothing and boom, 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 destroy the economy. So let's turn to the Republicans and Democrats for a solution. You see, because they already know how to. They created the problem. They should know how to fix it.
Do you believe in party politics at all? We talk about that on the show all the time. I
believe in party politics. Yes, it's the most corrupt thing in the world.
Do you think they work? Do you think money controls both sides of the aisle?
Absolutely.
It's just
But
kind of a puppet show.
the question is, do you think it doesn't?
I know that it does, but I like to tiptoe around those questions because you offend people that are really party.
That's too bad. It's too bad. It's the truth.
And you get along good, I got to tell you. I feel the same way. I rant and rave about, I'm in Missouri. I'm heavily involved in the political system in Missouri, a little bit in Florida as well, because I'm from here and I know a lot of the players in Florida politics. And, you like these people. You meet them. They run as Republicans or they run as Democrats. You go have dinner with them. You talk to them on the phone. They seem very charming and likable, and they have all these great ideas. And I watched that happen for a little bit, and it just dawned on me. I don't know what changed in my mind, but I looked at it one day and I went, they keep saying these things and nothing ever changes. It's amazing. It doesn't matter whether it's Democrat or Republican. The system, as I see it, continues to move in the same direction, regardless of which party is in charge. And I think it's kind of a ruse where the Democrats will have it for a little bit. You're disenchanted with them. You move over to the Republicans. They don't get it done and just ping pongs back and forth. I really think that's the illusion that we have to get out of, is that one of these political parties is going to come and change the game so much that it frees us up to have a constitutional republic, if you will, the way it was designed.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it. Do you see it through the same lens, or maybe have just
absolutely? And not only do I see it, but these I hesitate to use the word traitor. I'll leave that to other people, but it's hard not to use that word because these are people who we trust as our leaders to defend us against all of the things that they are perpetuating on us. Now, it's hard to find a word for that if it isn't treason, but I'm not going to use the word because I think it has some legal overtones that have to be considered as well. But they certainly aren't people that are deserving of our trust.
And everybody kisses their feet.
We want to keep them in office
Yeah.
just because they have a nice smile and all that sort of thing. And they always promise good things. And they're always talking about how bad the other guys are. It's an amazing thing, parallel to this movement, the shifting that we're talking about in history, is the fact that Americans, and no other country either for that matter, people in other countries either, do not vote for candidates. Think about that. They vote against candidates.
Right.
It's not that they like anybody, but they hate the other one worse.
That's right.
So 99% of the time, when people go to the poll, they really don't like the person they're voting for. But he or she seems like a better choice than that other guy, which is pure caca.
Right.
So we always are playing the game of the lesser of two evils. And that is a strategy that was well designed by the group I'm talking about, the Rhodesians, I call them. And that's even found in the book that was written about the organization. Carol Quigley, the author, says, I'm going to get, this is a paraphrase, but pretty close, to say that the American political party system of two parties, Republicans and Democrats, was designed specifically to placate the voters into thinking that their vote means something. Actually, both parties are the same, but they choose slogans and issues to argue about that are not as important as the really big ones. And they never talk about the big topics, only about the little topics, and they fight each other tooth and nail. And sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but in the long run, nothing changes.
Do you think that a lot of these assassinations, I talk about assassinations a lot as well. I know there's some, when you got into talking about currency and money, there were some assassinations before my lifetime and before my frame of reference, but Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marilyn Monroe. They tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. Do you think that this Charlie Kirk most recently? Do you think those people who try to that are real purveyors, that they're really trying to get to the truth and really want to put that information out into the public and make changes? Do you think that that puts a mark on your back by the people that we're talking about that run this system, have a lot of money, power, and control to handle? Do you think that that's what causes or is the instigator of a lot of these assassinations in our country, or do you think it's just bad luck? You're politically, you got a crazy person that comes out and shoots you. What is your take on the motivation for all the assassinations throughout the 60s, especially?
I'm almost sorry you asked me that question because my honest answer is not very popular, but I have to tell you what it is anyway. Yes, I think there is some of that where there were some very good people who were unexpected to rise up and develop a serious following who had to be removed. I also know how the opposition removes their opposition. And that they don't just pull out a gun and shoot them. The first, and by the way, they write, some of these groups have written texts. There are schools on this, by the way. And you can go to school and learn how to do this, by the way.
Really?
Which I've done, yeah.
Okay.
And the first step that our enemy uses so well is to ignore the opposition. Just ignore it. Let him go, because they know he or she will most likely burn themselves out. They don't have a following. They don't have any money, and everybody's afraid to touch them because they're, quote, controversial. They just stand back and wait for them to burn out, and then they're gone. And you can see that happening all the time. They don't have to do anything. And in many cases, those people do it to themselves. Some of them are not so nice people when you get to know them very well. And it's contrary to their political image. But then if that doesn't work, well, then they start using their influence over the media to create a bad image for these people. And they start creating ideas or suspicions or making charges, exposing that they've got 3 wives, or they've got too many girlfriends, and or they're involved in some kind of a debt problem. They're stealing money from the corporation or something. And in many cases, it's true, and in many other cases, it's not true. But it doesn't make any difference because the public, for the most part, will believe it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care whether it's true or not. It's just like, oh, it's more interesting if it's true. So therefore, I think it's true.
A better story.
Yeah, and so it's hard to overcome that. You could lead a very straight life and be accused of all kinds of horrible things. And if it comes from more than 1 or 2 newspapers, you think, well, it must be something to it, you know. And so the public will swallow most of that, and so they can destroy the reputations of their opponents quite easily. And if that doesn't work, the third level is to buy them out. And this is where I was so shocked to discover how well advanced that technique was. I remember as a young fellow, one of my jobs for an organization I was connected with was to raise money for the Patriot movement. And if there was any knowledge of somebody who had some deep pockets, who believed in the Republic and could see what was happening to it, I would go and visit them and say, if you got anything left over, you know, we could sure use it. And we need to get these people out of office and so forth. And so I do know, and I've seen these organizations over and over again, and these individuals be taken over by someone who approaches unknown to them, but from commerce somewhere. They have a lot of money, and they say something like this: you know, we like what you're doing, and we'd like to support you. Now, we don't agree with you on everything, but we like what you're doing. And, you know, we have great influence over the newspapers and over the television stations. And with our influence, we can pretty well guarantee that you will be elected president or whatever you're running for. It happens all the way down the line. And would you be interested? And of course, the candidate says, Would I be interested, and how? Of course. And they said, well, what do I have to do? Oh, you don't have to do anything. You just, one little thing. That's all. One little thing. What's that? Well, maybe you wouldn't mind honoring our suggestions for some people to nominate to the Supreme Court if you're elected, or the new head of the Federal Reserve System if you're elected. Would that be acceptable to you? These would be very honorable men. In fact, you'd be proud to recommend them, and you would say, "Well, let's go over that again. Who? Well, we can't tell you who it'll be, but it'll be somebody that you'll appreciate." And of course, the politicians go for it almost every time, and so they get committed on the money side. So they buy them out, or they'll just go to somebody. Look, we'll give you a position in a legal firm as a senior partner, and we'll give you an office and a pretty girl to take your notes and type up your letters. And all you got to do is just show up once a week and say hello to everybody, and then go play golf.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll give you $1.5 million a year for income. How does that sound? And just turn this whole thing you're involved with over to us. And usually that goes with the next step, which is, the old argument about which do you prefer, gold or silver or lead, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the idea is if you accept our gold, that's fine. And if you don't, you might have to accept our lead in the form of bullets.
Right. Well, what you're describing is the way I see it. It runs kind of like a mafia. You can
absolutely the same.
Right.
Absolutely the same.
Infiltrate, intimidate, or murder. Right. So you have multiple different options, but it comes with control. You have to be controllable. If you're not a controllable person, you're dangerous to the power structure. And certainly seems to me, because I kind of went through the assassination game, and the idea that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone didn't make any sense. And I think most people recognize that's probably nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Now we find out that Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated by his own son, said he was assassinated by his security and not by Sirhan. Then you have the situation with Malcolm X with the FBI. There's a documentary on it right now where they actually kind of know who shot Malcolm X. And it was the FBI was in the room when it happened. You have Marilyn Monroe, who was connected to both Kennedys. So you look at all this and you're like, well, all of these stories, even Martin Luther King, Judge Joe Brown was on that case. And he said, I know for certain that the person they have that they convicted and that is in the history books didn't kill Martin Luther King. He goes, because we have ballistic tests that say the gun that was committed to the courts as the weapon didn't match the bullets. So we know that, and yet the history books are going to remain the same.
Yeah, nothing changes.
Nothing changes. It's kind of crazy. In today's politics, what was your take on Trump when Trump began to ascend politically? I got caught up in it. I must admit, I was very politically naive at the time. But he was saying some things that I liked. He was going to go up against the establishment. He was an insider. And I said, man, it's just odd that he's able to manipulate himself through the Republican Party, which I think as corrupt as can possibly be. So when he made it to the top, I'm like, okay, let's see what he does. And it seems like it's been the good things are always coming tomorrow. And I'm starting to recognize, okay, well, this doesn't make any sense either. Did you think that Donald Trump at the beginning was a change agent, or was he a change agent who got co-opted at some point? What is your take on the Donald Trump administration? Because a lot of people thought that he was the change that was going to really expose corruption within our system, weed out what he called the deep state or the swamp, whichever you prefer. And none of it is really happening. It's just the opposite. It seems like it's more of the same now. Now we're just making excuses why it's more of the same if you're in the Donald Trump camp. How did you see him originally?
I saw Donald Trump. I hate to say this. It sounds like I knew it all along, sort of thing, but I did actually. I saw Donald Trump on the first day exactly as I see him today. And that is, he's a puppet, a total puppet. He is so compromised. I know a little bit about his background. I think most people do, but they tend to forget about it. Go back to his younger days when he couldn't leave the girls alone. He had to own the Miss America Mrs. America contest or whatever it was. He just had to have these beautiful women, and all kinds of charges were being made. And then he starts hanging around with Epstein and his girlfriend.
Roy Cohn. Nobody even talks about that. He said that was his mentor.
Yeah, and I knew all of that when when he was on television saying, "You're fired," you know. I thought, what a jerk this guy is. He's a buffoon. And he said he's going to run for office. Nobody's going to vote for a buffoon like that. And then I read it was a little article. I normally don't read newspapers anymore in paper form. I read stuff on the internet, of course. But in this case, I came across a newspaper. I think it was the New York Times. And on page 14 or some place like that, there was a small article. And it said, candidate Donald Trump spent the day yesterday in the penthouse of let's see, what's our guy's name? He was always the Secretary of State for all the presidents.
Kissinger?
Kissinger, yes, of course. I mean, he was the Secretary of State for all the presidents. Republicans, Democrats made no difference. And of course, I knew that Kissinger was the what you might call the briefcase holder or the bucket carrier for the Rockefellers.
That's right.
He was there when Kissinger went to Russia. Kissinger was always received royally because the commissars knew that he represented David Rockefeller. And Kissinger was Rockefeller's spokesperson. And that's why he was in all these Republican, Democrat, made no difference. He was on all sides of everything because he was about as close to the heartbeat of the problem we're talking about as you can get. And of course, those people themselves don't go out and make all these personal contacts, or very rarely do they do that. They have their puppets that they send out. So I knew what Kissinger was. So I read this article that said that candidate Donald Trump spent the day in the penthouse talking to Henry Kissinger about the upcoming elections and his candidacy for president. And I thought, what on earth would Trump and Kissinger have to talk about? And then I got it, because I had read the book that Trump had written, or somebody had written for him.
Art of the
And
Deal.
he said, you should vote for me for president because I'm a deal maker. I can make a deal with anybody, or with the devil, I think he even said. And I thought, oh, I get it. Mr. Trump made a deal with Mr. Kissinger / Rockefeller.
Right.
I said, he's going to be president. He's no longer going to be considered a buffoon. People are going to start to take him seriously, but they don't realize it's because he's made a deal. Well, what deal would Rockefeller and, let's say, the Rothschilds at that level, what kind of a deal would they be interested in making with a candidate for president of the United States? And the answer would be to betray them into a world government, pretending to be their champion against it. And I thought that was the deal. They'll make him president. They'll generate, the only way they could generate support for Mr. Trump was by having his opposition be so horrible that he was all that's left. The lesser of two evils.
I was going to say, I noticed that too, because if you look at his opponents, Hillary Clinton was not a popular figure, hated by the right. Then they bring in Joe Biden, and Joe Biden, I mean, couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. That seemed like a crazy choice. I always say you can tell it's a one-party system, because if the Democrats really believed that Donald Trump was Satan and he was going to destroy the country, your pick to go against him would never have been Joe Biden. It wouldn't have been Kamala Harris. No, rational person thinks that's the best they could put out there to challenge Donald Trump. So you look at that and you go, okay, this has to be a little bit organized, because the opposition is telling you that Donald Trump is going to destroy the planet, yet they can't put up one decent opponent for him for presidential candidate. That kind of was when I started to go, wait a minute, something is not making sense here. So a little bit different method than you got to, because another thing about Henry Kissinger is he wrote an article, I think it was in the Washington Post, which is the CIA newspaper owned by Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, which is an offshoot of the intelligence agencies. But he wrote an article around COVID. And I was reading that article, and I was in China when COVID started. I got a long history behind it, but I just knew that COVID was not what they were selling from the very get-go. And he wrote this long article, and he's supposed to be this genius guy. He was much older. He had a lot of experience, and he was, he was telling us how dangerous COVID was, and we needed the lockdowns and this. And I went, and it's just so you can kind of see that that underbelly of power have their influence on all of us because they write the stories, they write the script, and it feels to me like the politicians, as you said, they make a deal and they just sell what those global powers want. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, what they want to have happen, they have to go sell it and they have to make it make sense to people. Does that seem about right to you?
Absolutely. The only thing left out is that the strongest opposition, I believe, to Mr. Trump was not his opponents in the political parties, but in the street organizations, Antifa, and all the violence and the ugly people in the street, and then scared people.
Yep.
And they're gonna kill Trump. They're gonna cut him into little pieces. And oh my gosh, these people are so horrible. Trump must be good. It's so obvious.
Yes, if he's against these terrible people, then he's the good guy, right? They paint out the villain, and if he's against the villain, then he's automatically the good guy. Kind of like professional wrestling. We talk about that all the time too.
Yeah. Well, you see, this is the new kind of warfare we're in. This is no longer USA against China or Nazi Germany or anything. It's against our neighbor next door.
Yes.
Who happens to be part of this internal mechanism. We've been taken over from the inside, not from the outside. And that happened a long time ago. Now, that's where we started this conversation.
Right. That's right.
And that is the essence of everything I have to say. If we want to change what's happening in the world, we have to come to grips with that central fact. We are already conquered. Our job is not how to preserve the republic, but how to restore it. Period.
I couldn't agree more. What do you think? How do you think the media got infiltrated? Because I go back to the church here.
They bought into it.
Is that what happens? Because I was thinking to myself, I started school as a journalist. I wanted to be in journalism. I did not come from means, so I didn't have a lot of money. I realized journalism did not provide a lot of money, so I got into the business world. And I spent most of my career in the shoe business. But just from a journalistic standpoint, I look at the media and I always say to myself, those are the questions you're asking. You got Donald Trump in front of you, and you're asking him these dopey questions. And I sometimes it was so absurd I couldn't understand it, and now I understand it. It's because you can't really ask the questions that you and I are talking about. That would be off limits. But that's really what the press is to do, is to challenge power. Only they don't challenge power anymore.
No, it's not part of the debate. Not allowed.
Has that been that way for as long as you can remember, or did it start to change when we had a mass media, when we had the ability to write papers, sell cable news, have 3 news channels? When it was consolidated and easy, is that when the players started to get involved in the media business, or has it been like that for 200 years?
No, it has. That element has existed, but in my view, it's grown in intensity, almost mathematically progression. You can almost see it. It's accelerating. It's going so fast now that, for all practical purposes, it's already done. I mean, we can still say things now, but who knows what it'll be right next week.
Exactly. Did the media ever give you an opportunity? Because I look back at your clips and I find you so fascinating. I was going to ask you about Yuri Bezmenov. I'm listening to your conversations with Yuri Bezmenov back in the 80s. Fascinated by him. I started paying attention to Yuri Bezmenov. I looked up all the lectures that he was giving at the time, and he said, when Marxism comes and it comes your direction, the people that are protecting the machine, they don't see it until the boot of the state is on their neck. And I thought it's so interesting, because that is what I'm recognizing. People will defend the system. They'll be broke. Their families will be destroyed. They'll be in dire straits, but they still think the system is so wonderful. And that's kind of the way he described it.
That's exactly what he did. He said, the first stage was demoralization. And he said, once you get one generation of the young people through the universities and the grade schools, through one generation, he said, you've already lost, because you can show them the truth. He said, I can take people, I can pave their way to the Gulag, and I can show them the concentration camps up in the Siberian tundra. I can show the blood squirting on the ground. I can show the death and destruction, the torture, the lies, and they won't be able to believe it. He said, listen, I'm quoting him now, paraphrasing him. He said, they won't see it. They cannot see it. And I thought, well, that's a little bit of a exaggeration, Yuri. But now I recognize it. He was right on target.
Me too. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exactly that. I studied that over and over. But when I very first started in, I left the shoe business. I got into podcasting, radio, back to podcasting. I've been all over media since that point. And I really studied what he had to say. I think was it 4 stages? I think it was the 4 stages. And I used to talk about it on my original podcast all the time. And, he was talking about we were in it then. And I fast forward it now. And, I make commentary to people on the show that it does feel like this society thinks if they have a nicer home, a bigger car, that they have a better life than previous generations. It's all based on material wealth because we're kind of conditioned into that. And I make the argument that isn't life better? You might be living a little bit smaller. It might not be as comfortable from your surrounding standpoint. You might not have the big house and the fancy car, but isn't it better when your families stick together? Isn't it better when grandpa and parents and kids are all in close proximity and they live and they grow their lives together? They take care of each other. There's not so much anxiety if somebody were to lose their job because we're all communal. That is gone. And that almost had to be done intentionally because the American family is a wreck. I mean, nobody has their families around them anymore. It's almost everything is split up. And I always look at that and think, if I was king for a day, and I'm going to ask you what it would be like if you were king for the day, but if I was king for the day, I would promote the idea of families being close to one another, that we don't need all this material wealth necessarily in order to be happy and spiritually free. Do you see that is that material? It's that's the underpinning of the human psyche is to have more, to have bigger things, better things. As you said, when you were young, I was the same way. I talk about it all the time on my show. Do you think that we have been sold a bill of goods about what success actually is versus the way we should perceive it, in the sense that family and spirituality is way more important than material wealth, but that's not how we're built. We're just not built. You don't see yourself as successful if you have your family surrounding you. Some do. The right thinking, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question that it's been sold to not just the American people, but to people all around the world. We've gradually, continually, progressively been converted into economic entities, commercial entities. What's the word I'm looking for? Materialistic. Everything is, how big is your house?
Right.
How big is your car? How much money do you have in the bank? Are you wearing the latest clothes? And where did you go on your vacation? Did you travel around the world? And by the way, what's your title where you work? Are you a vice president or just somebody scrubbing the floors?
So true. I fell into it. I mean, you must have fell into it when you were young. I talked about it today, as a matter of fact, on my show earlier today. I said, when I was a young person, my ego was how big my house was, and actually the title in my business. Then that's where I got my self-worth from. And I realize now how ridiculous that is, but that is the way I thought when I was young. And I think I was conditioned into that because I didn't have a lot of money. So I saw success on TV.
And when you look at the mechanisms they use, they're brilliant. These people are no dummies. They're so much smarter. I wouldn't say smarter than we are, but they're better educated in human motivation than we are. And I look at the way they sell these things. The first thing a kid gets when he's out of grade school is a little booklet and a training program on how to borrow wisely, or something like that. Not how to avoid borrowing, but how to borrow wisely.
Wisely, yeah.
That's like giving some kid how to drink alcoholic beverages. Yeah. What's the word they like to use? Responsibly.
Yeah.
How to get drunk responsibly.
How to take drugs responsibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, and then I'll let you go. And I really do appreciate your time. I'm such a huge fan. It's an honor to talk to you. But I have to ask you, if you were king for a day, and you had control of the apparatus and you could make decision making for the entirety of the United States of America, and globally for that matter, what is the fix? How do people get out of this system? Because it seems like the system is getting more tyrannical by the day. And I think technology, the ability to infiltrate the minds of young people through social media, is growing and growing and growing. Do you have a methodology that you think would work to get us out of this system? And
yes, and I'm looking for a piece of paper.
All right, get your paper.
Here it is. And I'll be right back. First of all, if I were king for a day, sometimes people have asked me, "What if you were president for a day?"
I want you to be king. I don't want you to have to work with Congress. That's no fun.
Yeah. I would say I would resign because my political principles would not allow me to do what I want to do. When people are king for a day, they think that means, well, I have permission ethically to require people to do things that they don't want to do because I'm king.
Right.
So it's ethical. No, it's not ethical just because you're a king. If I were president, people say, well, what laws would you break or change, or who would you arrest, and so forth? That's what they want Donald Trump to do, break all the rules and put those bad people in their place. Never mind about the same rules being broken to put us in our place at the next elections. Don't worry about that.
Right.
Just tear down what's left of the Constitution and enjoy it while you can. You won the election. Well, so the first thing I would do if I were king for a day was resign. And then if anybody was left to listen to me talk, I would start to tell them about the great chasm divides most thinking people in the world today. And it's so simple that once they understand that intellectual division of one topic, that in my view, probably 90% of the population would, within 1 week, completely change their political and social views and support all of the good things that you and I want. Now, what would that be? It is something that I put into a little booklet called The Chasm, and this is the cover for it. And I'm going to urge everybody to make a note of the chasm. You see the headline is Collectivism versus Individualism. And there's a subtitle that's not on this sheet, but it's the issue behind all political issues. And I'll repeat that. I mean it. It is the issue behind all political issues. All. And the reason that's important is because I think most people, including the ones who are our opponents at the moment, many of them, still have some part of their brain that says, well, this is necessary. They kind of go along with the line from Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. Lenin said, if you're going to make an omelet, you have to crack a few eggs, So that meant you can murder 100 million people to bring about a better society. That's the mantra of collectivism. The mantra of collectivism is believed literally, I'm going to say, so close to 100% of the population on the planet today that it's pathetic. All of our leaders are collectivists, and they believe that one mantra, and this is it. The individual must be sacrificed, if necessary, for the greater good of the greater number.
Mm-hmm. And I think that filtrates down into society, don't you? I'm looking at what's going over in Gaza, and I have friends of mine that say, that's been a problem over there that has to be solved. I'm like, solve it by just bombing innocent people. 70, 80, 100,000 people have to die in order for a better society. It seems kind of counterintuitive to me.
All of the great crimes of history, all of them were done to some extent on the basis of the excuse that it was for the betterment of society. Somehow. We might have killed 80 million people, but 80 million and one were benefited, so that made it all right.
Isn't that crazy how it works too? It works on.
It works, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was sold that bill of goods in school. I was taught that at university, and it sounded good to me. Individual must be sacrificed if necessary for the greater good of the greater number. It just made sense. I don't want to be selfish. I thought that if you were an individualist, you were selfish and put your interests above all others. Well, by the way, I'm adding one more principle to my code of conduct and my creed of freedom on that very issue. I wrote this thing 20 or 25 years ago, and I have never thought I'd have to add anything to it. But only a few weeks ago did I realize that I had left something out of all these principles that point up the difference between collectivism and individualism. And the thing I had missed is the principle of enlightened self-interest. I had to learn that the hard way as a young boy, that, we're born very greedy animals. We want that milk right now, and everything else has got to move out of the way. We're just, oh yeah, one thing, me, and the milk. I have to live. Well, and then as we mature, we have to think about other people and their milk too. And then you mature, and some people don't. And you're into the big discussion of, well, at what point does the individual right overpower the right of a group? And I struggled over that for a long time, and I came finally to the realization that this thing group was a very malicious word, because a group does not exist in a physical form. It doesn't exist in the way that humans exist as physical beings. A group is an abstraction. It's the concept of many. I mean, the number 7 is an abstraction, but you can't touch 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the mind. You can touch trees, but you can't touch a forest. The word forest is an abstraction of many trees, but the only real thing is trees. And the same thing when you deal with human issues and desires and activities. I discovered that the only way to better serve the greatest number of individuals, or the group, I should say, let me get that straight. The only way to serve the best interest of the group, this concept of many people, is to pay attention to the individual rights of each member of the group, because they are real. And if you can service individual liberties, you have served group liberties better than any other way you can, and so forth. It's
important, right? Because it protects individual liberties. That's why the Constitution.
Individual liberties. There are no other.
Right.
There's no such thing as group liberties. That's the point, because group does not exist. So once we understand that all this hoopla was over an abstraction, like the number 4 or 2 or happiness or some other abstraction, they don't exist except in the mind. And so when you start to put the human rights of something that doesn't exist ahead of the human rights of something that does exist, you've made a huge mistake ethically and politically and socially, because some jerk is going to stand up and say, I represent the rights of the majority and I will speak for the group.
And that's when tyranny begins.
Yeah, and they do. And that's where people get murdered by the billions.
You got to be careful.
Anyway,
I'd be remiss to ask you, though. I want to get this out from you. Federal Reserve System. Do you think that? Do you think there is a better system if it's based on a commodity? What do you think of the Federal Reserve System? I know you don't like it, but every time I talk to politicians about it, I said, "How come nobody ever brings up the Federal Reserve System?" The only one that really did was Ron Paul. Nobody talks about the Federal Reserve. Massey has talked about it just a little bit. What do you think of the Federal Reserve System? Because it sounds like we're in debt to a number that doesn't even make any sense anymore. And I guess at some point you'll be in more debt than you're bringing in money. That's just a matter of time with the growth of the debt. How do you see the fiat currency system? Do you think that is kind of the root of the evil system itself, is the protection of the fiat currency? Do you think there's a better system out there that we should emulate? What's your take on it just in general?
Well, it's a pretty simple concept, really, in spite of its complexity at the outer edges. When you look at it, I have a little story to tell you. I used to, when I wrote my book, and I would deliver speeches at some little community to promote my book, I was always happy when I was told that somebody from the local newspaper or the television station was in the audience and they wanted to interview me afterwards. I thought, oh, great, I would get some exposure now, sell some books. And invariably they would say, well, we don't have a lot of time, we're on the air for only a few minutes. We got to cover a lot of news, and this is just local news. So can you summarize what your speech is about in less than a minute? And I said, what? I just spoke for 90 minutes and had trouble wrapping it all up. And so I was irate at first, but I got to be pretty good at it because it was always the same thing. I knew I was going to be asked for a short soundbite. And I got good at it. And I can give you a summary of the Federal Reserve System in 3 words, and it'll be totally inclusive. Here they come. It's a scam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now you know everything you need to know about answering the question you just asked. What do I think about it? It's a scam. It's a scam in which the banking fraternity has hoodwinked the citizenry of a nation that they can be legally plundered by this group of bankers in the interest of the greater good of society. We're back to that again. See, well, those all come together. It's for the greater good. If we didn't have a sound monetary system, well, then we'd be eating raw meat in caves. And so we need crooks to steal our money from us and tell us how much it's worth and so forth, so that we can have caviar. And that's basically the argument. And so what do I think of it? I think it's, of course, a scam. It should be described as that to start off with. And then you can take all the time you wish analyzing the many ways in which it is a scam and by which it betrays the understanding of the average person. They think they're getting something that actually is the opposite of what they have been told is into their best interest. It's legalized plunder, and that's what it is. And so what do I think of it? I think it's got to be eliminated.
I agree.
And I don't think it needs to be replaced by something equally bad or worse. I think it just needs to be removed. If I went to the doctor and said, look, what's wrong with me? And he says, well, I just examined you and you have cancer of the liver. And we're going to have to cut it out. And I would say, well, wait a minute, doctor, what would you replace it with? If you've got a cancer, you've got to get rid of it. Not necessarily cutting it out, by the way, but stop feeding it toxins. But anyway, you have to get rid of the cancer. You can't just
live with it.
You can't replace it with chemotherapy without killing yourself.
I agree with you. I think the Federal Reserve System, if you really pay attention to our world, the Federal Reserve System that's the real problem, because you can never get out of you feel like you're constantly going backwards when you are dealing with inflation and interest rates. You feel like you can never get ahead. I always tell people, how do you retire when you don't know what a dollar is going to be worth 20 years after you retire? How do you know what anything is going to be? It's impossible to have security in your life unless you're very wealthy. I mean, if you're very wealthy, that's different because you can buy assets with it. But if it's just money, you don't even know what the money is going to be worth. And I think that is a real problem as life progresses.
Okay, well, I mentioned this thing before because I wanted to say.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I would like to invite people to download a free copy of this. Is a 50-page document that summarizes all of the reasons that individualism is superior to collectivism.
How do we find it?
You go online and type in the word chasm, CHASM, .realityzone.com. And that'll take you to a website and you can download it. You can print it out. You can take the printout to the local print shop and put a binder on it. And you can make a couple of extra copies, give it to your friends. I guarantee you, you'll change lives.
Chasm.realityzone.com.
That's it.
I got to ask you too. Last thing. This is an easy one. How many books have you sold? The Creature from Jekyll Island. Do you know? Do you have a sense of how many books you've sold?
I don't really know because there have been some foreign sales. I don't get numbers on. We've got books published in multiple languages too. But I can make some pretty good estimates. The U.S. Printing and the foreign printing all put together, not counted the pirated copies, by the way, as over 1 million, probably 1.5 million copies, something like that.
I think it's
which absolutely blows my mind because I never thought anybody would want to read this book.
I think everybody who pays attention to what goes on in the world at some point gets a hold of your book. I mean, when I started talking about the things I'm talking about, I heard all the time. Did you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, Rob? Did you read and I'm like, wow, this must be a really popular book that I wasn't aware of. And then I started watching your videos, and here we go. So, my friend,
Legendary.
I cannot tell you how honored I am to speak to you. I think you're a living legend. I love your information. I love your work. I love your demeanor. I love the fact that you're 94 years old and you look like you're 65. I think it's fantastic. And I hope to have you on again and again and again. So I'll reach out to you. I'm going to get a signed copy from you. No, it doesn't matter what I have to pay for it. You have to make a commitment to me that I'll get a signed copy of a book from you because I think it belongs on these shelves behind me.
It'd be my honor.
You're on. You're
okay,
on.
Rob. Well, thanks for inviting me. And next time.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Isaiah. What do you think?
Great interview.
Isn't he just wonderful? And I was thinking as I was doing the interview or watching it right there, I thought, now take a look at that interview and the conversation that we're having versus something that is on Sean Hannity. You know what I'm saying? If people could do a side by side,
or Hannity at Night or whatever it's called, right?
Whatever. You watch the Sean Hannity interviews and you'll recognize a real conversation amongst people trying to figure out what's going on in the world versus Sean Hannity, who's selling you on voting for Darlene Graham because he's never met Darlene Graham, doesn't know anything about Darlene Graham, but the Republican Party says it's Darlene Graham. She's going to replace Lindsey Graham. Therefore, Sean Hannity, get on Fox News and tell everybody how great Darlene Graham is.
Jeez.
And that's what he does. It's embarrassing. You know,
Yeah.
when you see the differences, when you recognize that we got caught up in in propaganda that we thought was news. Once you start to recognize that and you can snap yourself out of it somehow, some way, then all of a sudden you can have real conversations about how to fix the society that you live in. So for your kids and grandkids, if you don't care about the future, that's one thing. But if you do, we have to have enough people that say, wait a minute, we've got to get out of this bubble, this insanity, these crazy narratives. At some point, Isaiah, I've got to get to a situation where I list all of the media narratives. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch Fox News in the mornings and I'm going to go one by one of all of the narratives that they put out there. And what you'll find out at the end of the 9 billion narratives that everybody was screaming about on any particular day, if I were to list all of the narratives for 1 year, you'll recognize 3 years later, you don't even remember what they were talking about, but yet you were screaming at your neighbors, you were fighting with somebody at the water cooler, you had all this stuff going on. And you don't even remember what they were talking about. Their narratives, it's a brainwashing. It's a slow brainwashing of society that we have to get hip with. We got to understand it. What do you think of his take on Donald Trump? I looked it up. I sent something to you when he talked about Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
Look, because I looked up, I said, okay, when did he talk to Henry Kissinger? Now, anybody who pays attention to global politics knows that Henry Kissinger is the one that aligned us with China. That was Henry Kissinger. A lot of people think he's the devil reincarnated, and he did meet with May 18, 2016 with Donald Trump. I guess that's the interview. That's what he was talking about. And in November. So two meetings with Henry Kissinger before he became president of the United States. And he said, when I saw that he was meeting with Henry Kissinger, that's when I knew, okay, here we go. And ultimately, we're going to find out whether he was right or wrong. But I think at this moment in time, if you take out the Q thesis that big things are coming, it's right around the corner. We're going to get to it here. So he's playing 5D chess, and all of a sudden it's going to just break and boom. Everything's going to fall into place. All the bad people are going to go into prison. You have it. If you don't believe that story and you're just watching what's happening in your daily life, we were driving through. Check this out, Isaiah. This is how crazy the world is. My wife and I had to drive in. We couldn't. The flights into St. Louis were so ridiculous from Florida last minute. It was like a couple $1,000s for me and my wife. And I thought, you know what? Let's just drive it in. Let's drive in. We're driving through Illinois, right toward the very end of the trip. We're driving through Illinois, and I'm trying to get into St. Louis to get gas because of the cost. So we pull over. It's $4.19 a gallon in Illinois to fill up your car. Now, had I filled it up $4.19 a gallon, it would have been about $82 or $83 to fill up my car. Okay, you know what it was right before all this stuff happened in Iran? You know what it cost to fill up that car? $37.
Oh my gosh.
People go, wait a minute, there's no way. Yeah, it's $37 to fill it up. $37 in Florida to fill up my car. Now it might have been completely, let's say it was 43 because it was around the end. I remember thinking one day I filled up my car, I'm like, $37, that's not too terribly bad from where it's been. Now if I was living in Illinois, it'd be $80. I think when I filled it up here, it was $64, if I'm not mistaken. So you went from $2.49 a gallon to $4.19. It's crazy. And, and our society just puts up with it because Donald Trump's got a master plan going on that you're not recognizing. And if you say anything different, they think you're a traitor to the country. They do. They think you're a traitor. They think that you're crazy. You don't get it. You're not smart enough to understand it. And I don't know. I don't think it matters. That's my whole point. It's not that I hate Donald Trump. I don't think it matters. I think the system does what the system wants to do, and they can put whoever they want in there. It doesn't matter whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or Mickey Mouse. It doesn't make any difference. The system has puppetry put before you, and that is the system that we live in today. That's it. You should pay attention to local politics. You should fight for a federal government that actually protects your constitutional rights. And if it doesn't do that, you should be in DC, just like Isaiah and I go to DC, and start talking to these people and asking them real questions, making them feel uncomfortable. They don't feel uncomfortable. Isaiah, do you think the people in DC that we talked to felt uncomfortable?
No.
Could you imagine being in charge of a government?
Randy Fine walks out of there with no one with him, just by himself. No staffers, security, nothing. He's just
right.
He's on about his day, right?
But can you imagine a society, seriously, if you took away Democrat and Republican? I want to bring this to people's attention pretty much every day now. If you took away your idea of Democrat and Republican and you just said, what's my government doing? Forget that there's two sides of it. There's no Republicans, there's no Democrats, there's just a government. Would you tolerate a government that doesn't have any stability in its currency? What are you doing with the currency? I mean, can we make our own money? Can we, let's have a currency that protects the interest of the people of America? And you go, no, you can't do that. Your dollar is going to be worth 8 cents in 10 years. Oh, okay. All right. That's good. Would you tolerate a society that was shut down where big corporations that run the show are left open and your churches are shut down? Would you tolerate that? No, you wouldn't tolerate that. Would you tolerate creating war all over the world and the people you're at war with leave the borders wide open for them to come in and for you to pay for? Would you vote? You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do any of the things that we tolerate in this country. Nothing. The whole thing is bizarre. And if you're wealthy, if you've bought into the system and you go to the right colleges and you align yourself with the big corporations and you're able to have a financial windfall in the society, and you think everything's great because you're working 80 hours a week, but you got the big house, you got the hot wife, you got the wonderful cars, your kids are in private school, right? You'll think that is a win. I did, Isaiah. I thought, look at me. Look at this. I got the 7,200 square foot house. I got the Cadillacs in the car. All my kids got new cars.
Baby grand piano behind you.
Baby grand piano behind me with the stone fireplace. I got it all rolling. Yeah. And then I realized I'm exhausted. I'm mentally destroyed when I'm home. I'm not spending any time with my family mentally. I'm there. I'm physically there, but I can't really concentrate on what's going on because I'm so tired from traveling 150 days out of the year to keep all this up that I never got to enjoy my life. And that is the American system. That is success. Believe me, all of my friends, when I had that big house and the cars and everything, my friends thought I was very successful, Isaiah, and successful in the sense that, look how good Robb's doing. Look how good Robb's doing. Well, Robb's not doing so good. Rob's face is breaking out all the time because I'm stressed out of my mind. I'm exhausted because I'm traveling and I'm carrying 200 pounds of shoes around all over the country. I'm not doing good. I just look good. My pictures on Facebook look good, Isaiah, because I got a big house. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's ridiculous. And I think he talked about that at the very beginning. That is not success in the world. Yeah. Do we want to have material success? Do we want to be able to take care of our families? Do we want to be able to travel? Yes. And my argument to all of the people in government is it should be so much easier. Mm-hmm. We have technology, we have resource, we have everything that we need. We built that, not your government. We, the American people, built that. We worked our asses off to make sure that we could do these things. And now people are going to work till they're 80, 85, 90 years old. They're going to have, when they go to their medicine cabinet, they're going to have 95 different prescriptions to stay alive. They're going to always have little ailments that are bothering them. Their families are going to be split up. The borders are going to be wide open. This is the new life that we live. And the only thing to stop it is to organize and change it. And that's going to be very difficult to do, I have a feeling, Isaiah. But what'd you think of the conversation? Any great?
Yeah, I think he hit early on about the demoralization of America, and that's something that we talk about all the time.
Yep,
that's kind of what they've wanted for a long time, and they want us to, we talked about the nuclear family, I think, the other day too, how they wanted to break that apart, right? They didn't want the traditional family, and if they can break that apart, then they can break anything apart, as far as what we understand. There is no good, right? There's no good or bad. It's just whatever your truth is. Whatever feels good for you is okay, as long as you're not hurting anybody, right? And I loved how he's talking about, drink responsibly, right? Just these words that they use to kind of, hypnotize us, as we talk about with Bernays and MK Ultra a lot. But that's what I took away from it, was like, man, he's just hitting the nail on the head for everything that we talk about. And
Yes.
I'm glad you pulled that out of him so that people could see that it's not just us that are thinking this way. It's people for a long time that have thought this way. We're not just coming to some, light bulb moment of like, oh, we're the only ones who know this, right? No, there's a lot of people that think like us, and there's people that think like us that have thought this way for a long time. We may just be new to being more open-minded, right? We got out of the Fox News,
Nonsense.
nonsense, or the television, as they always say.
LA Vision, Hollywood, program. All of the words are right there before you, and nobody even notices them. I got to say, I think the one of the most exciting things to me in life is I do see little fringe changes going on in the country. I think young people did not grow up watching Fox News. They probably had their parents watching it in the background. They got, oh my God, I can't take it another day. I don't want to hear dad talking about Fox News. I was one of those guys, so I get it. So the young people have come up, and they've gotten.
That was me with my mom and Tucker Carlson when he was. Yeah.
But I think young people have primarily gotten their information from the internet. And I think when they get burned by the internet, they start to be a little bit more savvy about how they take in information, because, there's a lot of craziness on the internet. There's no doubt, but there's craziness on corporate television as well. So take your pick your poison. It doesn't really matter where you're getting from. But I think young people who've grown up with technology, grown up with multiple sources of information, as humans, intelligent people, they're starting to figure out, well, wait a minute, the information is out here for me if I know how to find it. Not easy to find. We all agree it's not easy to find. If you're giving true information, you're trying to be a truth sayer, then it's not easy to get a message out if you're telling the truth. That's just the reality of it. That's just a fact. And but I think young people, thank God, honestly, I think young people are seeing it for what it is. I think that's why I'm so excited to have a little bit younger audience than I had in the past. When I got out of radio, I think the majority of my audience was 65 and up. That's just who listens to the radio. I go into podcasting, and a quarter to 30% of my audience is under the age of 45?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the number they give us? 45?
Yep.
So, now you're starting to get younger people, because I consider people to be under 40, 45 years. That's a young person.
Yeah. I sent today's show to a guy that I know that's a small influencer as well, because he talks to me all the time about G. Edward Griffin. He's like, oh, you're having him on, I'm going to tune in. Right. But he's a younger guy. And it's because of the G. Edward Griffin interview that he's going to tune in. You know what I mean? So that's just the nature of where we're at with young people versus, I think it's just boomers, really.
Why do you think it is, though, Isaiah? Do you think it's just the the overwhelming amount of propaganda over time that has so shaped their perceptions that if you see it different, you just don't understand? You're too young, you're too naive, you're too stupid. This is really what's happening. Is that kind of the mindset of a lot of the boomer generation?
I think so. I think the propaganda of, like we talked about before, if if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists, all that kind of stuff.
If you want it, I'll give it to you. Hang on here.
The American flags, right, on the lower thirds, patriotism, freedom, right? What's Mark Levin's show called? Life, Liberty, and Levine, right? Like and so I think that kind of, and like you said, the sensationalization, the Jake Lang stuff is a perfect example. The sensationalization of what's going on, to where it's like, oh my gosh, that's all they're going to see, Rob. That's all the boomers are going to see. They're not necessarily on X seeing the development of all this stuff. They're just going to see the clip that Sean Hannity plays, right, of all these Muslims attacking Jake Lang. That's what they're going to see on Fox News. They're not going to see him slapping a Quran with bacon, antagonizing people, things like that. That's not what they're going to see. They're not going to see that sign that you talked about that, what did it say? It's like, I love black people, but I hate the N-word, right? Yeah. It's like,
can you imagine putting that out there and then
that's not what Fox News is going to see.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then they create the fight. And then Fox News covers the fight, and they go, see, this is what's going on. But I got to give you a little George Bush, because George Bush, obviously the brightest, G.W. Bush, the brightest of all of our presidents.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. Either you're with us, either you love freedom and with nations which embrace freedom, or you're with the enemy. There's no in between. You're either with us or you're with the enemy. That's clear.
That's clear. I love that. That's clear. You're either with us or you're with the enemy.
Yeah.
That's very clear.
This person here, Eagle8264, says, Isaiah, I'm a boomer and I call BS. It's the majority. It's not everyone. It's just like when we talk about Israel. It's not all Israelis, right?
And I
It's
think we have to be careful of painting
yeah,
everybody with one brush, and I don't mean to do that at all. I'm just talking about the
no.
generality of the age group, and I think it
If
is
you look at
not
the voting record, I think that's a good, a clear picture. You know
right.
what I mean?
Well, look at the Trump rallies now.
The boomers voted for Byron in Florida, and the younger people voted for James Fishback. That's just a clear picture of where it's at and the generational divide. That's all I mean.
This guy said George Bush looks like a saint in comparison to today. Um, if you look at Mark Mitchell, who we had Rasmussen polling,
Yes.
he said, he was talking about the boomers, and he said, the Trump administration, the people that are in and still follow Trump and still believe what Trump is saying, it's the boomer generation. That's who's propping him up because they own, I think he said they own 40% of the United States wealth. So the boomer generation owns 40% of the wealth, and they have all their money they got the stock market gains as well. Of course, I'm almost a boomer.
John Grady, I think he's just taking a rip at you, I
Of
think.
course, John's my buddy. But it's I get it, and the reason I think I'm a little bit more familiar with it is because it was me,
Mm,
right? I am close to that generation. It did.
yeah.
If I'm telling you, if COVID doesn't happen to Rob Carter in his life, I'm probably in the same group as the
Mm,
other people screaming and yelling
yeah.
about how Donald Trump has got 5D chess going on, and you just don't see it. And of course, the Republicans are better than the Democrats. Like the Democrats, they want transgenderism and they want Islamism and they want all this other stuff. And I would be fighting for that argument. What happened was COVID opened my eyes. Like I said, I lost my career over it. When I lost my career, I said, you know what, honey, what should we do? And my wife said, we have some money. Why don't we just, why don't you wanted to do radio? Why don't we just, roll the dice and, start a new career for yourself? And that's what we did. And
Mhm.
thank God it's worked out, because it might not have, you never know. I had a lot of confidence in myself. So I figured I could make something happen. But if you take that, if you take that out of the equation, if you take COVID out of the equation, then I would be in the boomer arena too. I'd be saying the
Yeah.
same things,
Yep.
right? I mean, that's what
Oh,
changed
yeah.
my mind because I
Even
got
some young people, I would say, even some young people that, would be the, Charlie Kirk disciples, they still might be, on board as well,
there's a lane.
minus the war with Iran, I would
Yep.
say that would be a big, big split, but COVID changed so much for so many people to where they didn't for people that didn't think that the government could do that, like myself, it just became a reality. Like, oh, they will do this. Okay.
We were in a
I thought
police
I
state.
thought this was just a conspiracy theory. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That something like this might happen in the future one day, maybe. And here we are, where it's happening before our eyes. Groupthink, yes.
Yes. And it was, we lived in a police state for a while. We got to feel what that was like. I mean, they were arresting people in New York City. I couldn't go. I went to some of my biggest accounts. I was still in the shoe business when COVID was going on. Some of my biggest accounts were in New York City. I couldn't go.
Yeah.
You had to have a card to get up into the building. So, like, if I'm going into
Unbelievable.
Manhattan and I've got a meeting with, let's say, Ross Stores or TJ Maxx or whatever that's in New York City, I couldn't get in to have conversations with them. I couldn't get up there because I didn't have a COVID card. That is the society we live. That was right here in America. And it's just amazing to me that people are oblivious to it. They don't recognize that can't happen. It can happen because of the propaganda. So one of the reasons I harp on it so much is it will happen again. It could happen next year. It could happen 5 years from now. But the next time it happens, it won't be lighter. It'll be stronger. They recognize now if they put the right imagery in front of people and they sell the stories hard enough and they get enough fear drummed up and they use the corporations to endorse it, then they can pretty much do whatever they want. They had 70% of Americans, think of this just for a second, get all the political nonsense out of your mind for a second. 70% of Americans put a needle in their arm with a concoction. They had no idea what it was, no idea about it, no safety records. They couldn't read about it. There was no information at all. And 7 out of 10 Americans, through coercion, through intimidation, because they wanted to stand in line to get it because they believed the stories, whatever the reasoning was, 7 out of 10 Americans were influenced to stick a needle in their arm with a genetic therapy that would have never been allowed on the market had COVID not been shoved down our throat.
Mhm.
It's incredible when you really think about it. 7 out of 10. 330 million people in this country, and 7 out of 10 fell for that. Isaiah just shows you the problems that we're going to have through propaganda. We have got to
Yeah.
get out. There should be hearings on our media. So if we had a real government, they'd say, wait a minute, what instead of Thomas, one of the reasons I'm upset with Thomas Massey is he still goes on Fox News. He was complaining that he wasn't on Fox News. Listen, you should not want to go on Fox News. Number one, you should be talking about the ills of Fox News. Number two, same with Josh Hawley. Same with all of these people that are in the Republican Party. They think that they're better looking, taller, and more successful every time they go on Fox News. Look at me, I'm on Fox News. I mean, Josh Hawley has been on Fox News 100 times more than he's been on any local radio stations. Who does he work for?
Yeah. Eric Schmidt, not talking about the gas prices, but he's playing golf with Scotty Scheffler though. So he made sure to post that.
Yeah, because they become celebrities. That's it. They become celebrities and they're nice people. My dad just met Eric Schmidt recently. My dad just met Eric Schmidt. He goes, he's a really nice guy. I said, of course. Why wouldn't you be a nice guy?
Yeah.
Of course you're a nice guy. You get all the money. You get to go play golf with Scotty Scheffler. You got everything at your disposal. You're this big hot shot when you come into town. Like, oh my God, that's Senator Eric Schmidt. Look how hot he is. Oh my God, he's so fantastic. He's so great. And he hasn't done jack diddly squat for anybody. He's not changed your life one iota, none, zero, not a nothing.
No.
That's the way all of them are. And they're all lauded as they're so special and wonderful. And they're going off to DC and they're so awesome. You and I walked around there. I'm telling you, if you go to the offices and talk to these people and have real conversations, you'll realize they're just as dopey as anybody else. They don't know anything about anything.
Yep.
They're dopey people.
They're just humans. That's what I learned from my pastor a long time ago, because he was just talking more. He wasn't talking politically. He's talking about, these faith leaders that we look at and we judge or things like that. Like, I'll just throw a random one out there, like a Joel Osteen, right? But we put these people on pedestals and they're just normal people at the end of the day. And if you kind of come to that realization and you're like, okay, let me treat them and view them as a normal person, then you're like, wait, what have they done? What are their achievements, really? How many days did they miss a work, actually? And you start looking at it from that point of view. You're like, oh, okay, they aren't as good as they say they are.
And you know what's weird about that, Isaiah? And I don't know why this is. I've never been awe of another person. Never. Doesn't matter who they are. And I've been that way since probably 16, 17 years old. I have a buddy of mine. So when I told you was my buddy that never spoke to me again because I was supporting Donald Trump back in the day. And he just hated me over it, and it ruined our relationship. We used to vacation together. Our families grew up together. He will never talk to me again. And now, feelings are mutual. But at that time, I was like, what is going on here? He was the kind of guy that if he saw a celebrity, he would be like so excited. I remember Dave Chappelle, the comedian, was walking along in Manhattan, and he saw Dave Chappelle, and he I wasn't with him, but he raced across the street, and he could not stop talking about meeting Dave Chappelle and seeing Dave Chappelle and how amazing it was. I'm like, you ran across the street to get closer to Dave Chappelle? Okay.
Yeah.
I said, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Yeah. I mean, Dave Chappelle's awesome. He's funny. He's great, wonderful, this, that, and the other, but he's just a comedian. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, we are amazed by television images. If somebody gets any kind of power through the television set, they become more and more popular.
Yeah.
That just makes them popular, and people like them primarily just because they're on their television sets and they get to see them, and they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us. Let's do some advertising. Take just a little bit of a slowdown here for a minute. I got a lot of things that I want to talk about. I want to get Catherine Austin Fitz lined up because I do want to talk about what she had to say. So that's clip number. Let's do 3 and then 5 when we come back, Isaiah. But let's get some advertising out of the way. Let's start with People's Lobby Missouri again. People's Lobby Missouri. This is if you want to get active in your community and you want a group to hitch your horse to. If you are somebody who believes that government can do better and you want to put pressure on them to do better, if you want to put extreme pressure on your government to fall in line with a constitutional republic, then you have to join peopleslobbymo.com. We need donations, but you don't have to donate. We definitely prefer donations, but just sign up so we can stay in contact with each other, because as the noose begins to tighten more and more and more, they're not letting off the gas right now, Isaiah. I don't see either party. I don't see anybody letting off the gas. We're going into full totalitarian government. That's where we're moving. That's how you can start a war and go against the Constitution and have the entire Republican Party keep their mouth shut. Think about that. To start a war in this country, you have to go through Congress, because Congress is closest to the people. Now we start wars. We don't go through Congress, and one political party says, what's the big deal? And the other party kind of plays games with it, doesn't do anything. So now you could have anybody rise up and be president and go, Let's get the propaganda machine going on Fox News and let's start a war with Mexico. Let's get the propaganda machine going and let's start a war with Taiwan. Let's get a propaganda machine and go to war with Iceland. Let's get a propaganda machine going and we'll attack whatever country in the world because you don't have to go through Congress anymore. You just determine who you want to go to war with. The big corporations go, yeah, we need the resource in this particular country. Let's go in and start bombing them. But you got to make sure that we sell it first. So sell it like you did with the USS Liberty. Right? We'll just make a story up. Everybody knows it's not true, but that's cool. We'll just make it up and just go. This is the world we're heading towards if we don't stop it. All right. peopleslobbymo.com. Sign up. Don't forget, September the 18th. Can you put our website up there real fast, Isaiah? September the 18th. And my buddy Ben is going to put something together for us so it's a little bit more official. But for right now, if you want tickets and you are a daily listener or you're somebody's, all the People's Lobby, if you're signed up for People's Lobby, obviously the tickets are free. But we're going through. If you're a member of People's Lobby Missouri, obviously you have tickets already. If you want to come, you just got to let me know you're coming so we can get the seats counted out. But you go to therobbcartershow.com. We're going to have my good friend now, Phil Turney, will be there. You're going to get to hear from Matt Thompson. I talked to him. So Matt Thompson put the documentary out about Jeffrey Winehouse. So you're going to have. It's going to be this. I'm so proud of what we're getting ready to put on here on September 18th. So if you I'm a tough guy to make happy. And I thought this is going to be so fantastic. We're going to talk about how we're going to progress the show. We're going to talk about what People's Lobby Missouri can do when well-funded. We're going to have all of our daily listeners or the ones that want to come will show up there. They'll get to see Phil Turney in person. You're going to get to meet a 79, 80-year-old man who was on a ship that should have changed all of human history. And it didn't because he was told by his government to keep quiet when Israel bombed his ship. I was having people arguing with me online. There was a clip that went out there, Isaiah, and people were arguing with me about it. I said, so you know that Ben Shapiro and the official story to be true because why? And they can't answer that question, but they're mad at me because I did go speak to the people that were on the ship. I actually got to look them in the eye and have a conversation with them. And they say that it was intentional. Yet the people that weren't there have no idea about anything. All they've been fed was propaganda. Will literally want to get into a fist fight.
Yeah, it's not a single crazy nutball either.
Correct.
Right.
This is the entirety of the people that were on the ship that are still alive all say the same thing. So you tell me. So what happened was on June 8th, 1967.
Is there any other military operation like that where they don't believe the military members?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
I've asked military members to show up with me. Some of these organizations, they won't even return my phone calls, Isaiah.
Wow.
They have been blacklisted from the military for telling the truth. It's an awful situation. So if you're a military member and you are a little bit concerned about where your government is taking our military, and you want to hear from people that experience something that nobody should have to experience, napalmed, bombed, torpedoed, watching their kids or their friends' arms and legs blown off, watching them just explode right in front of you. 34 people perished that day, 174 more injured. And then you want to tell the people in the world that, hey, wait a minute, Israel, the state of Israel, our greatest ally in the world, they did this on purpose. We got to see it. We watched it. We saw the pilots. We were waving to them. They were dipping their wings. We got to see the whole thing take shape. And then have your government say, keep your mouth shut. And then have the media say it was an accident. And Israel goes, oh, it was a big accident. Sorry about that. And everybody just believes it. They don't ask any more questions. That is all the way back to 1967. All the way back to 1967. And now we're combining militaries with them. We're combining technology with them. It's amazing. peopleslobbymo.com. We'll have Phil Turney. The guy that put out the documentary, his name is Matt Thompson. He's going to talk about the Jeffrey Winehouse case. The idea with Jeffrey Winehouse, if you're not familiar with that case, Jeffrey Winehouse was shot twice in the chest, twice in the forehead by Missouri highway patrolmen. They lied about the story. He's in prison now for shooting at the cops, which he videotaped, and we can clearly demonstrate that didn't happen. It went all the way to the Supreme Court of Missouri, and the man continues to spend his life in prison for something that he obviously didn't do because he videotaped the entire thing. And it is my life's mission to get him out of prison. I think it is just an assault on our sovereignty. It's an assault on our intelligence. It's an assault on the people of Missouri. It's an assault on our justice system. It's an assault on truth. It's an assault on decency, everything. It's just an absolute assault. And Matt Thompson put the documentary together that caught my attention. He plans on being there. I talked to him on Friday. He said he'll be there. So Matt Thompson will tell you his story behind the documentary of Jeffrey Winehouse. We'll have Phil Turney talk about what he experienced on June 8th, 1967, as a member of the USS Liberty Veterans Committee. He's the president, by the way. It will be fantastic. It'll be that's going to be one of the most emotional nights in politics that you've ever been a part of, because you're going to get to experience it firsthand. I hope that you'll join us. Just reach out, therobbshowhost@gmail.com, therobbshowhost@gmail.com. If you want tickets, we'll have our People's Lobby Missouri gang there. We'll have our members there. We'll have our advertisers there. We'll have a nice crowd, and it'll be a great night. That is September the 18th. We'll start promoting it and putting out advertisements here within the next few days. And then, once we get to the number, that's the end of it. And that'll be in St. Charles County, Missouri. Okay, we're solidifying all of that information here shortly, but that will be in St. Charles County, Missouri. And that is going to be a absolutely wonderful event. This, Isaiah, I promise you. All right. Next one is Mitch, my buddy Mitch with rocketcareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. This is a nationwide business. He specializes in small to medium-sized businesses who cannot find good candidates for positions. They recruit good candidates for you. They put talented people before you so that you can improve your business through better people, better workers, better employees. Small to medium-sized businesses always think Rocket, ROCKIT careers.com. And as we always say, if you hate your job, if you're out of work, if the bills are coming due and you're starting to panic, just reach out to rocketcareers.com. My good friend Mitch, all the way back to high school, and Brian, his partner in crime, they are terrific at what they do. They'll help you launch a new career. Rocketcareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. You can reach them at, let me get that number out here, Isaiah, 636 778 2419. 636 778 2419. And then advancedwellnessmed.com. I have a lot of people reaching out now. You're starting to find out, Isaiah, what COVID did to people. Forget who was. I was talking to. So I was at a funeral yesterday for my buddy Ryan, and somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, I know we're talking about moving back to Missouri, and you reached out to, maybe your wife could find a position here." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Whenever she's ready, if she still wants to be a nurse when we come to town, I want to make sure that she has options." And we got to talking about COVID and illness. I said, "Yeah, my wife says after COVID happened, there's been more sickness at her hospital than she ever remembered prior. It's just insane how much illness there is." I said, "Are you experiencing the same thing?" She goes, "Absolutely." She goes, "It's unbelievable. Post COVID, it's like everybody's sick all the time. And there's these really crazy ailments that people have, from cancers to I guess just all kinds of different ailments that are driving people into the ICU around the country." Advanced Wellness MED, that's our good friend, Dr. Helen Gelhot. Not aligned with all of the hospital administration. She's a free doctor. If you like free doctors that we give you good information, as she likes to remind me, we assist the divine healer feel, think, look better, and live longer. She concentrates on the things that kill you: cancer, strokes, Alzheimer's, dementia. Alzheimer's and dementia, they have symptom reversal. So somebody in your family, whether it's a family member, maybe it's grandma, grandpa, maybe it is a friend, and they have early onset dementia or starting to get Alzheimer's, reach out to her. Symptom reversal. You can fix this thing. You got to get to it early, and you got to get some help. I say if you have Alzheimer's or dementia or know somebody that does, get out and see Dr. Helen Gelhot. Again, earliest cancer detection blood test available, and early screenings for heart attacks and strokes. The things that kill you, she'll help you with. Our good friend, Dr. Helen Gelhot. You can reach her at advancedwellnessmed.com, 314-576-0094, 314-576-0094. GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com. He should be there. I would assume he'll be there at our event on September 18th. My good friend, Gary Schneider. What a great guy.
I was out in Marthasville yesterday at Dollar General and saw a huge Grace Hauling dumpster.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
If you pay attention, if you're just somebody, because he advertises with me and I've become friends with him. Now, when I'm driving through St. Charles County and I'm on any side street during trash pickup, you see those trucks and cans everywhere. And he said, "Rob, but for the grace of God, I would not have such a thriving business." GraceHauling.com, commercial or residential, it doesn't matter. Been around since 1998, and they pride themselves on customer service. Good people. GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com. All things rubbish, all things trash, GraceHauling.com. And then we got Jones Air and Water. I just had to turn off. So it didn't make I only had so many plugs, because I'm doing it at my dad's house. You can see my dad's living good here with the piano and the thing.
Yes.
but I had to turn it off. But I love it when it's on because it keeps the air crisp and clean in the home. But we ran out of plugs to get this whole thing set up to do the
Yeah.
show today. But again, this is my good friend Everett Jones.
Hardball practice tonight. He said, Rob, don't forget.
I'm leaving at 4. I'm on a plane at 4 back to Florida. I'm just in for the funeral one show, and then I'm back in action from Florida tomorrow. I come back in, I think, in September. JonesWater.com, JonesWater.com, 636-899-1040. I like the fact that he still wants me at dartball because I'm not really good at it. So he likes me personally because he's batting me last, and he's embarrassed when I start to pick up the darts because he recognizes I'm not very good at it, but he still invites me back. I like that. JonesWater.com, JonesWater.com, 636-899-1040. You'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter. You'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter, JonesWater.com. If you're drinking tap water in the year 2026, I have to ask you what's going on with you. All these little ailments that you get are often from nasty air and nasty water in your home or business. You got to clean that up immediately. Got to take care. The system is not working on your behalf. Just remember that. So when you get a chance to overcome it with clean air and clean water in your home, take advantage. JonesWater.com, been around since 1995. Great guy. If you want to do business with Everett Jones, dehumidifiers, air and water filtration systems, he's got it for you. And he's been around for a long time, especially with me in the show. He was one of the first people that said, I like what that guy's got to say. I want to work with him. So I want to make sure that everybody involved with me reaches out to JonesWater.com at some point. If you want to do business with Everett on the Missouri side, it's St. Charles, Lincoln, Franklin, Warren, St. Louis, and Jefferson. If you're on the Illinois side, it's Madison, Monroe, Jersey, and St. Clair. JonesWater.com, JonesWater.com. You'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter, JonesWater.com, 636-899-1040. All right. Let me get into Catherine Austin Fitts. She's the next on the list of people I want to speak to. I'd like to get Whitney Webb in here. I want to start getting more Democrats on the show. Exhausted from the Republican Party. Let's see what the Democrats have to say. I want to see how those conversations go. It's not that I don't, I love some of the people in the Republican Party. I root for them, but I want to hear both sides of the argument. I want to recognize if they are party people or if they're for the people. Big difference, right, Isaiah? You can be for a party or you can be for the people. The 10th Amendment guy says that one of the most dangerous things that ever happened in the country, according to the original founding fathers of this nation, was to get so tied up with the party that you fight for the party more so than you do the people. And how many times have we seen that in Missouri? I mean, to me, it's to the point of almost it makes my stomach hurt. I watch these people. I'm like, who are you rooting for? What are you doing? And they consider themselves grassroots organizations. They're supposed to be out there for the people, getting information out. And all they do is whatever the Republican Party has as their platform, they start to sell it. I'm like, have you questioned any of this? There's a guy out there right now.
Or they bandwagon on stuff once they find out that's popular, like the flock camera stuff. It's like all of a sudden Missouri Freedom Caucus comes out after,
after
all
Jake's
this stuff is already, after Jake already has a win, right? Yeah. It's like, man, this is crazy. You're kind of hopping on a little bit late, and people can see it. You know what I mean?
Well, do they see it? I guess we see it. That's why I tell my friends that are in the political arena. I said, you see it clearly because you do this every day.
Yeah.
99% of Missourians are working, trying to get their kids off to school, trying to survive, trying to pay their utility bills, trying to make sure they can eat, and they don't know what's going on at all. Yeah. And that is why People's Lobby Missouri is so important. Once we market, the only reason that these politicians and some of these people can get away with it is because they have the ability to control the message. Once you take the ability to control the message away from them and you have the same resources and the same money to get your message out, then it all ends. Mm-hmm. Don't you get that? Do people understand that, Isaiah? Yeah. What People's Lobby Missouri wants to do is, I'm the mouthpiece for, right? I'm the lead singer, if you will, for People's Lobby Missouri. I'm not all of it.
The Milli Vanilli.
I'm not the Milli Vanilli because I will actually do something about it. I have no fear of anything that we're doing. I'm not scared of anything that we're doing. I don't think I'm under any kind of assault from these people. I just think that they, as G. Edward Griffin explained, they ignore you at first, right? Then they can bring you into the fold. Say, Rob, you're way better than doing a podcast. We can bring you on to Newsmax, and you can make $500,000 a year. You may probably grow into a big celebrity and make yourself a bunch of money.
We'll make your hair just perfect. All right.
Exactly. Make your hair a little bit darker. You'll be a little bit taller and better looking. We do all these things for you. Put the makeup on you. You'll look handsome. It'll be wonderful. You'll love it. And they expect most people to say, yeah, that's great. And then I go there and then all of a sudden I can't say what I want to say. Right. Mm-hmm. So they can intimidate you. They can bribe you. They can ignore you, or they can assassinate you, Isaiah, which is what he was trying to describe. And I think that we have to recognize those things. People's Lobby Missouri, once we have enough money to market what we're talking about, everybody will have to answer questions. not just the politicians, but all the people in the Republican Party that stand up and fight for everything the Republicans want, or the people in the Democrat, and they just stand up and fight. And they don't really believe it, but they got to be a team player. They got to be a team player. I say, what did they tell you to do? You could speak ill of Republicans. Isn't that something you were supposed to sign when you became an alderman?
Not necessarily that I couldn't speak ill. It was just that I had to commend them, right? And so I was like,
the difference. It's even worse.
I was like, it's not telling me that I can't say something, but it's telling me what I have to do, right? Which is,
I think that's even worse.
Yeah.
You have to. So if I win as a Republican, let's say I'm a Democrat.
Yeah.
I think like a Democrat. I went, like John Patterson, the Speaker of the House, is a Democrat. If people understood what was going on, right? So he's a Democrat. He runs the Republican Party. And if he has enough money to run as a Republican, although he's a Democrat, and say just enough to get him elected in his district, then he becomes Speaker of the House. Now you have a Democrat who's dressed up as a Republican determining all the legislation in the state of Missouri, and I have to praise him?
Yeah.
I have to praise that guy? No, thanks. I don't think I'll be praising him politically. I mean, what kind of person he is, I couldn't tell you, but I'm not praising him politically under any circumstance. Same with Sam Page. You think the Democrats are coming out going, this Sam Page guy, this guy that put masks on your kids and shut down society here in St. Louis, Missouri, and ran like a tyrant the entire time COVID was going on. But we like Sam Page. He's a doctor. I mean, look how smart he is, Sam Page. Right? This is how it works, unfortunately. And I think most people recognize that at this point.
Money runs both sides of the aisle, just like Thomas Massey.
Nothing. All right. Let's get into Catherine Austin Fitts. She is somebody that I intend to get on the show here before Too Terrible. And we've reached out to her. She's responded, and she's so sought after in the podcast world that I'm not on the list just yet. I think she told me 6 or 8 months ago, whoever reached out to her said that she is booked for an entire year of podcasting.
Yeah,
think about that.
That's how it is.
And I think she does 2 or 3 a day. I mean, she's constantly podcasting, explaining to people what's going on in the world. And, say what you want about her. She's been right. Isn't that how we're supposed to judge people when they get things right? Like when I go back to COVID, didn't I have it right, everybody? Mm-hmm. When at the very beginning of my show, my very first podcast, didn't I talk about COVID and the con that was COVID? Wasn't I right? Doesn't everybody recognize now that I was right at that time? It doesn't mean I'm smarter than anybody. I had more information than people. But when I was telling you, hey, be careful with this situation here because they're going to put masks on you, they're going to mandate vaccines, everybody goes, Rob, you're crazy. That could never happen. There's no way they're going to mandate vaccines, Rob. There's no way they're not going to make people walk around in masks.
That's
outside.
what I thought.
They told me I was crazy. I'm talking about people that have been in my life since I was a kid, told me I was insane. It was unbelievable the amount of pushback I got on. And then when it happened, they made excuses for why it was happening. They never said, Rob, you got it right. They said, well, Rob, I mean, if we don't wear the mask, it's going to spread everywhere. Everybody's going to die. I mean, don't you get it? I said, but I told you that was going to happen. I told you it was a ruse. You don't remember me telling you that was a ruse from the very beginning? Yeah, I mean, you said that, but I mean, now all the information's out there. I mean, look at Rachel Lewis.
The science, Rob. Trust the science.
Trust the science, Rob. I trust the science. When Catherine Austin Fitts gets things right over and over again, then maybe pay attention to what she predicts for the future. Isn't that fair? She's got the answers to the test. Pay attention to her. I'm going to start with her. It's clip number 3. She went on Shannon Joy show. We're going to play this on Friday. We ran out of time. But she talks about how the global banking system works. She talks about the New York Federal Reserve and just how the system of banking is really where the action is at. So I want to play this. Shannon Joy's another one we've been trying to get on the show. She is running for office up in New York City. She was who was the guy that was up there that came on the show that was aligned with her?
Larry Sharp.
Larry Sharp. Was it Larry Sharp? Great guy. I really enjoyed that conversation. I think he's running as a libertarian. Maybe she's running as a libertarian. There's somebody in Franklin County. That's who we're going to have on Friday who's running as a libertarian against Dave Schatz. We'll have him on.
I was going to say we need to get them on. So that's...
Yeah, with the local people on as well. So people can see local, state, federal, international government and how they're all tied together. Okay. It's not just one or the other. You might be more excited about Fox News narratives and the aliens and the space balloons and whatever else they got going on any given day. But the reality is local, state, and federal politics has been sucked into international politics, and then it filters itself down. They all get paid off. They all sing the same story. And then the morons, should I say that, Isaiah? Is that mean to say? Let's say the people that are easily propagandized, or I was a moron at one time too, maybe still am, who knows?
Imbecile, maybe.
Imbecile, but all of that information starts to filter down, and it filters down into local politics because money rules the day. If you have enough money, Isaiah, you give me $1 trillion, I'll be the next governor of Missouri. Give me $1 trillion. I'll be the next governor. Guarantee it. 100%. If anybody's got $1 trillion, just give it to me and I will be the next governor of the state of Missouri. And I'll fix things for you. Like benevolent, there's a libertarian run against Kurt Barr. Bring him in.
Yep, we'll do
Free
it.
Patriot. Let's get that person on. Absolutely. Kurt Barr's starting to go on these talk shows now. I've been watching with some friends of mine doing interviews, and I'm like, come on, stop it. There's not information, Isaiah. If it's not, if there's, listen to me. For all of my friends that are doing local radio in St. Louis that are hobnobbing with these people, and I like a lot of the people that are doing the interviews. Ask them some questions that are tough.
Mhm.
Make them squirm just a little bit. Pretty please with sugar on top. Okay. It is absurd that we run elections the way we do in Missouri. Don't let Kurt Barr come on there and wine and dine everybody neck like he's got more information. He knows how the elections work and he's so fantastic. I mean, give me a freaking break. It's stupid. Push back on these people. Pound away at them.
Mhm.
It's the ninth inning. It's the ninth inning. We don't have all day to fix our elections. We need people that understand that the best way to count votes is to have clean voter rolls, no machines whatsoever. If you want to check them with machines just to make sure the hand counts are right, that's fine. But it should be a national holiday. If it's not a national holiday, it should be a state holiday. We're not going to get our country back until we put people in positions of power that belong there. And we can't do that now. You can't do it. You see it with your own eyes. You can't do it. You know it. You recognize it. The people that's, as Donald Trump said, Isaiah, these are not our best and brightest. Isn't that up? Is that fair? They're not our best and brightest. Clearly, they're not. All right, here we go. Sorry, got sidetracked. But I do want to get the libertarian on who's running against Kurt Barr. I want to have that person on. Let's do Catherine Austin Fitts explaining the banking system. Check this out. Clip number 3. I thought it was great.
You mentioned the central bankers. And essentially, these are the people who are in charge of that 2 trillion deficit or that gap, right? But the 7 trillion in American spending.
They're the ones who manage the financing of that 2 trillion.
Now, are those central bankers? Are you talking about the New York Fed in exclusivity, or are you talking about the global central bankers? And who are they? Is it the international families? Are they, oligarchical groups?
Most central banks, most central banks are privately owned.
Okay.
So let's talk about the Federal Reserve because it's the mother of all central banks.
Okay.
The Federal Reserve Bank combines 12 private banks that run the transactions for the United States with a board of governors, which is a hybrid between the banks and the president will appoint the governors, et cetera.
Okay. Does the president really appoint them, though? Or is the president told to appoint?
Both. There's lots of political pressure.
Okay.
It depends on, but you have a hybrid structure. And the 12 banks run the transaction, but in those 12 banks, the mother of all 12 is the New York Fed.
Okay.
Because the New York Fed is the depository for the U.S. government.
Got it.
And it runs the primary dealer network with Treasury.
Okay.
And it also is the agent for the Exchange Stabilization Fund.
Okay.
So I have a study that I wrote in 2018 called The State of Our Currencies.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, I describe how the currency system works, how it went from the sterling to a duopoly between the U.S. and the sterling, and then to the dollar, and what it takes to run a global currency.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what it takes to run a global currency is what I call the financial bazooka.
Mm-hmm.
And the Exchange Stabilization Fund is at the heart of running the financial bazooka.
Okay.
So anyway, so the New York Fed is the mother lode. Now, who owns the New York Fed and who owns the other 11 banks?
Right. I don't know.
They're member banks.
Okay.
So the New York Fed is owned by Citigroup. It's owned by JP Morgan Chase. It's owned by Bank of New York. So, it's owned by those banks. Now, who owns those banks?
Great question.
Right. So if you look at their proxies, because most of them are publicly traded, you can see it's BlackRock, it's Vanguard. But then the question is, who's really behind that?
Right. This is where I wanted to get to with you, because now, because that's always the question. That's all. Who is doing this? Who is deciding that we're going to depopulate? Who is deciding that we're going to have a global, worldwide pandemic? And and shut the entire Western world down? Who decides that we're going to have a pretend war in Ukraine or a pretend war in Iran? Who is telling Donald Trump, okay, buddy, this is your job. Your job is to essentially detonate the United States of America, crash their dollar, crash the culture, send them into second world, third world status.
In my experience, if you look at who at the top layer of the power is intergenerational pools of capital. And what they do is they work together for consensus. So remember, capital has to be managed to, when I invest in something, I want it to be successful and I need to protect against risk.
Right.
So people who invest intergenerational capital tend to collaborate and coordinate in all sorts of ways.
Right.
Which is why you see the Bohemian Grove, why you see the Masons meeting, up and down their hierarchy, which is why you see the Bilderbergers meeting, which is why you see people gather at Davos and talk. What they do is they're constantly looking at, okay, where's the investment now? And where do we, as things, as world changes, where do we shift? Where do we put the money? And they're constantly collaborating on how to do it. It's very organic, and there's a lot of trial and error, and there's a lot of fighting. Okay?
Yes, I believe that.
I thought that was fantastic. If you followed that, I had to listen to that several times in order to get an understanding of it. But she said, what really goes on, and the reason you have all of these, you end up with global government, is people from around the world realize that they could control all of the systems once they got America, once they got the UK, once they got Europe, once they got Japan, once they got China. There was a certain way. So all they had to do was make sure that through whatever means they needed to get, they could control certain players in some of the bigger countries and then take over their political system so that they could control the world map. The world, not just a sovereign nation or this nation. They wanted to control everything. And how did they do it? They said it's intergenerational wealth. These are the oligarchs of the world, right? Because you and I, Isaiah, do not have families that were millionaires back in the 1600s and then decided we wanted power. And then those millions became hundreds of millions. And then over time, they became billions. And then over time, they became trillions. And then they started to connect with other million, billion, trillionaires from around the world, right? And then all of a sudden they said, you know what, if we would just work together, we could control the world's water supply. We could control the world's energy supply. We could control the world's military. We could control the churches. We can control everything. And once we can control those things, then we have total power over the entire planet. Wouldn't that be nice? And people went, yeah, we should probably maybe start to mingle together, start to figure this out, how we could get this done, because technology is going to allow that before too terribly long. We are moving in a direction where we can actually accomplish these things so long as we're not at each other's throats all the time. Maybe we can just work together to get these things done. And that's what they've done. That's why the Federal Reserve is such a problem, because you can get these things done when you're not backing it by anything. We can't even see where the money's coming from. When they print money out of thin air, you don't know where that's coming from. That's what she's trying to explain to you. It's all tied up in a network of nonsense that you can never get to the bottom of. She says, Catherine Austin Fitts says, I'm about as skilled as anybody on the planet when it comes to finance and currency and everything else. And she goes, I can't tell you who's behind it. I just know that there's somebody behind BlackRock and State Street. I just don't know, how did it start? Who's behind it? Where's the money come? When money gets printed, where does it go? Where are these NGOs? Where's that money going to, right? USAID, where does that money go to? Who's behind it? And you can never know, because it's a network of, it's like we did when we did the Charlie Kirk money.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk wanted a Doge audit of Turning Point USA. And that lady went in, she goes, okay, here's how it's structured. And there's got lines going everywhere for all these different things. You can never find out who's behind it. It's a maze. It's designed to be a maze. And if we had a country that was for real, if we had a sovereign nation, we'd simply go to Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt from Missouri and say, we don't like this operation. We don't think it's working out for the American people. Can you do an audit and tell us where this money comes from? And they said, Rob, you know what? You're Isaiah, you're a Missouri citizen. If you ask us to figure this thing out for you, we got to do that because we work for you. We are stewards of what you want, Isaiah. And if the people of Missouri don't like the deal that they're getting in Missouri, then it is our job to get answers for you. You think they're going to get answers for you, Isaiah?
No.
Zero chance. Zero chance that they would ever do anything of consequence. They're not going to do it.
Unless it helps them get on Fox News.
You think Fox News would ask those questions?
No.
Do you think Fox News is ever going to go, Mr. Hawley, we feel like we're getting a bad deal from State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock. Can you kind of just walk us through how that whole system works, how the Fed banks work together, the Federal Reserve, the New York Reserve, the member banks, Citibank, all these things work their way into BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Can you explain that to us so we understand how the money flow in this country goes? What are our taxes actually working for? Can you explain that to us? But they shouldn't they be able to? I mean, if you're going to live in this country and you're going to spend this currency and you're going to retire off the backs of 401ks and currency, shouldn't you have some understanding of how it's all organized? But nobody does. And you're never going to know. They're not going to let you know. It's sickening, really. It's really depressing, quite honestly.
Yes.
And it just continues to move on. And it's, again, why I say you never know what your dollar's going to be worth. How would Rob Carter, how much money do you think I would need? Let's say Isaiah, because I'm going to live a long time, right? I think I'll probably live to be about 125 years old. That's my guess, right? Great shape. You know what I mean? I'm not going anywhere. So let's say I live to be 125 years old and I want to retire at 65 because I'm exhausted from the world. And I just want to retire and enjoy my family and enjoy my wife and enjoy travel and do those how much money would I need? You'd have no idea. I might need $50 billion by that point. Who would know? You have no idea. So therefore,
is the dollar even going to be around?
You don't even know if you're going to have a dollar.
Yeah.
Even if the country will be here in that point. You know, there's so much anxiety because you have no idea. And isn't that insane that I can't understand what money's going to look like 20 years from now, 40 years from now? I can't retire with a safe enough number because I have no idea what money's going to be worth. And nobody does. And she explains that. If you listen to that entire interview, she explains that. She said they want to make intergenerational investments and they want to make sure those investments work. So if they say that we're going to invest in solar energy, and the big money says, okay, solar energy is where we want to go, then they have to make solar energy work. It doesn't matter if solar energy works or not. They force it to work through the stock markets and through the investment. They make it work because they're not investing generational wealth and losing. That goes across all of the different industries. They're not going to lose because they are the people that run the operation, is the way she described it. I thought it was great. Now let's go to Tucker Carlson, because this caught my attention. This was a clip that's out there from Tucker Carlson. The reason this caught my attention, Isaiah, is remember this, there was a lady named Michelle that came on my show all the time. I reference her continually. Got to get her back on the show. But she was from Russia. She lived in the Soviet Union when it all fell apart and their currency fell apart. They had no currency for a while. Was it the ruble?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were relying on the ruble and the currency, everything falls apart. You know, when the Soviet Union fell, so did their money, so did their infrastructure. Everything fell apart. And I said, what was that like? You know, what was it like living through that? Because I always think that's going to happen in America. We just wake up one day and the dollar is worthless and nothing's going to happen. I said, what was it like? And she goes, it was really interesting. She goes, I thought it was kind of the best thing that happened to us. And I said, really? I go, explain that to me. And she said, you know, Rob, she goes, when the currency failed and there's no currency anymore, but you still have to eat, you still have to take care of your kids.
Yeah.
You still need medicine. She goes, what happened is everybody began to work together. She goes, we had to. There was no option. You know, they didn't have guns over there. Nobody's not running around with guns to where you're going to go fight and take it from each other. They had to figure out how to get their society back and running. And she said that we all started to work together. If there were older people that were at home, they would watch the kids, right? So it's like, Janie down the street, you know, she's 72 years old and she doesn't work anymore. She's at home. We need babysitters now. We'll take her kids and she'll watch 4 or 5 kids and we'll go out and we're planting and we're doing and the whole community started to work together until they got their currency back up and running. I think she told me it took 6 months to a year, if memory serves. I could get that completely wrong, but that's what the memory serves. And she said, and once that came together, we were a more cohesive society. Yeah. We actually needed it at that point. And I keep thinking to myself, if the currency crashes in America, what will things look like if the currency crashes? Not that it's going to, because we, like she said, we got the bazooka pointed at everybody that wants to mess with our currency. So we got that pretty much under control. But what would happen if it did go away? She talks about this. She says this was what was going down with the raping of Russia. Who do you think they're going to lay out as the people behind it, Isaiah, if you had to guess?
Of Russia?
The people that were behind the fall of Russia and what happened with all because that money is going somewhere.
Muslims?
It's oddly enough, it's not the Muslims. Let's check it out. Wow. This is what she had to say. This is Tucker Carlson with Catherine Austin Fitts, clip number 5.
Big picture description of this transition through which we're moving. The first thought that comes to mind is, boy, that sounds a little bit like what happened after the Soviet Union collapsed in the summer of 1991. And all of a sudden, Russians woke up 10 years later and all state industries were owned by a small group of people. It was correct. I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like.
Well, if you generally, I mean, I'm grossly oversimplifying, but if you look at the people who did it's called the rape of Russia.
Yes.
You know, it's a similar group. And I'll give you a story. I was in the City of London making a presentation in 2001, and I'd been asked to speak about what I call piratization in the United States, the consolidation of the real estate and housing market. So I'd been the Assistant Secretary of Housing. And I gave the presentation, and two presentations followed, one by Ann Williamson, who had been covering Russia for the Wall Street Journal during the rape of Russia. And she got up and gave a presentation. And then John Laughlin, who's a remarkable British commentator now in Paris, stood up and did the same on what had happened in Eastern Europe. And the three of us went into shock, as did many of the investors in the room, because we realized it was the same firms, the same law firms, the same intelligence agencies, and what they were doing in Eastern Europe and in Russia and in the United States was a very similar game. We have a big presentation at Slurry called Plunder, but they were basically going in and plundering, and it was one plan. It wasn't three different plans or three different groups. It was a process of consolidation of the economies in all three places.
And basically a privatization of the nation's resources.
Well, here's the thing. Privatization, Tucker, is when I transfer an asset or involve corporations in a service at a market price. Privatization is when I transfer an asset to a private party at 10 cents on the dollar.
Yes.
So at a below market price. And what we've been watching by and large around the world is privatization, not privatization or plunder.
The looting.
So let's talk about how that applies to me and you, Isaiah. Okay, so I was telling you about my buddy whose family was losing their home because they couldn't pay the property taxes. All right, so let's just figure out how this would work. How people can recognize that it's happening to you and your family, and it will happen to you and your family at some point if we don't stop it. Let's look at property taxes in the state of Missouri. If you don't pay your property taxes over the course of 3 years, they will come in certain towns and areas and communities in the state of Missouri, and they'll take your house from you, and they'll put it up for auction. And then all the big corporations come in and go, hey, this $300,000 house, we're going to be able to get that for pennies on the dollar. As she explained, it's piracy.
Yeah.
It's you put a system in place to where a group of people are no longer going to be able to pay the fee to own their home. Can't pay the fee to own your home, Isaiah. That's America, right? Russia's terrible, China's terrible, but in America, they will take your home from you when you're 85 years old because you can't pay the property taxes on it. That's going on in America. We need to pay attention to that.
Freedom, though.
Freedom. As we're buying that Argentinian beef, should we pay attention to what's going on at home just for a second? Maybe, possibly, maybe just for a second, just for a minute, pay attention to what's going on in your backyard. Because when it happens to you, then it becomes real. When it happens to your neighbor, it's kind of abstract, right? But this is happening to people that I love. So I'm looking at it going, wait a minute. 85-year-old person who's worked their entire life, Baptist preacher, is going to lose his home because he has some medical illnesses that have basically taken their money from them. Right? That's how the system works too. You get sick and then you got to pay for it. And all of a sudden, bye-bye, right? Can't get insured. You don't have enough money. They take your money. Bye-bye. Okay. So the city of Bridgeton, if they don't pay their back taxes, their property taxes, will come in and they will auction off their home. Well, if you're somebody who's buying auctioned off homes and you've got a couple $100 billion in your back pocket because you're one of these BlackRocks or State Street or Vanguard or any of these private equity companies, well, then they'll see this on the market and they'll say, okay, well, it's we can sell that for $325,000. Let's see who shows up to buy it. Well, the people that show up to buy it are going to spend $150,000, $160,000 on this home. Pennies on the dollar because they're in the know, and Isaiah and I are not in the know. And that's how, if you just look at that and say this is the way the entire system works, then you start to see what's going on in your world. It's depressing. And again, I'm not concerned about what's going on in Israel. I'm not concerned about what's going on in Canada. I'm not concerned about what's going on in Ukraine. I'm not concerned about what's going on in China or Taiwan or anywhere else before I'm concerned about what's going on in my country.
Especially Iran.
Or Iran. I didn't even think about Iran. Didn't even make my list. Didn't even hit my brain.
Yeah.
But our country.
You're not worried about the nuclear dust, Rob?
I'm not worried about the nuclear dust. What I'm worried about is taking care of my own society and the people that I love and the people that I care about and the people that grew up around me. I want those people to be okay. I don't want the system raping them, which is what they're doing. And we don't pay attention to the rape that's going on at home because we're looking at the neighbors over here and we're worried about our neighbors in Israel and Iran and China and Russia and everywhere else. That's where we keep our focus instead of focusing on what would make our lives better. And no matter how many times you bring it to people's attention, America first, America first, America first, America first. But when it's not America first, that there's a reason for it, Rob, that you just don't quite understand. This is what I get it all the time. I still get it. I'll probably get it. Somebody will probably pop up on here in the chat and tell me that I'm crazy.
But your son still doesn't own a home. That's the problem.
Well,
right?
it's ridiculous. But again, it's a part of what I consider the conditioning of the mind. So long as you can condition the mind into being accepting of these things, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And when society accepts it and they won't band together, they won't join arms or won't take up arms, I guess I should say. Right. Then you just have this slow drip into a new world where you don't really have any freedom or liberty. You just have the illusion of it. We might already be there, but it's only getting worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, we have we got transgender basketball players in the WNBA, but most people can't afford to buy a home. So this is freedom.
And that's what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. That's the argument. That's
the new America, right? Is we can put transgenders in there. They're good to go playing women's basketball, but like Ben Shapiro said, if you can't afford, hey, it's not our fault you can't afford a house where you grew up. Just move. Come on, right?
That's Ben Shapiro. And again, people pay attention to Ben Shapiro like he's a smart guy. Think about this, for example. You grow up and you and your family and everybody in your life lives in Northern California. This is where your family grew up. This is where all your friends and your associates and your network, your grandparents, your kids, everybody, all your friends, everybody lives in Northern California. And you buy that house in 1975. And you buy that house and it was $205,000 back then. You've since paid it off. Now you want to give it to your grandkids and so forth and so on. And then you look up and your house now is worth $1.7 million.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens in Northern California and LA. My old the guy that ran the company not ran the company, but owned the company that I worked for was in the real estate business. And I heard people come into his office and tell the stories. So you buy the house for $205,000 way back in the day and you've paid it off. You want this to be in your family. And now you're retired and you're bringing in from Social Security and maybe some savings that you have about $5,000 or $6,000 a month. You have a $1.7 million house. You can't pay the property tax on it. It's gone.
Yeah.
This is America. And we're talking about other countries and what should happen in other countries. And we're fighting over the war in Ukraine and Russia and the war between Iran and the United States.
Iran's being so terrible to the people.
China's going to attack Taiwan. And it goes on and on and on. And our people are completely susceptible to it because you can see by the conversations they have with you. I had some guy screaming, yelling at me about the U.S. Liberty Vets. I said, you don't even know what you're talking about. You're an imbecile and you're mad at me. I apologize. But
that's what I love is that they feel so strongly and they feel like they're right. And then you ask them, well, why do you think that? And they don't want to tell you, because Ben Shapiro told me, right? Or they don't want to tell you, Sean Hannity told me, so that's why I want to say that, right? But
Ben Shapiro said to move. If you cannot pay the bills where you live because the properties have gotten too high, then you should just move. So according to Ben Shapiro, your family and your friends and your network are completely irrelevant. If you grew up in Northern California and now the houses are too expensive and you can't live there, well, then move to Oklahoma. What's the big deal?
Yeah. You got a job that you dreamed of and you want to live maybe 15 to 20 minutes away from work, so you don't have an hour drive. But the cheapest house is $800,000. What are you going to do?
That's the argument that he made. I mean, seriously, that's the argument that Ben Shapiro. Now, when I think of Ben Shapiro, I think
you are a snake. You are a rat. You are a fraud. You are a backstabber. You are a handbiter.
The handbiter is my favorite one. One more time, Alex Jones. Just nailed
it. You are a handbiter.
You are a snake. You are a rat. You are a fraud. You are a backstabber. You are a handbiter.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro just needs to move back to Israel.
Ben Shapiro, like I said before, think of how all of these frauds like Mark Levin, Laura Loomer,
she's the craziest.
Ben Shapiro, Benny Johnson. I think there's some guy named Eric Doherty or out there.
Yeah.
I could go on and on with the list. There's a ton of them.
Brothers,
Liz Wheeler. How many of them are there?
Katie Miller, Stephen Miller's wife.
Cat Turd. These people make a living off of getting Republican talking points and then arguing about it on
Yeah.
putting it out and posting it on social media. That's how they make their living.
Nick Sorter.
Nick Sorter. I mean, I'm telling you, if you want to sell lies to the American people, you're going to make a lot of money. I
Lots.
said it 1,000 times. I'll say it one more just for the people who might just be joining us. If you have the ability to stare into a camera just like this, stare into the camera and lie through your teeth and influence people and sell it with vigor as you're lying through your teeth, you can make yourself a lot of money in America.
You do have to be able to read though, because you
I'd
can't
be able to read
have,
the script.
can't have free thought. You got to read what they put in front of you.
What's this guy say? Hang on here.
Yeah, the $20 burrito.
What's
Yeah.
going on with that? I don't even remember that story. Remind me of the $20 burrito story. I don't even know what's
Yeah, so I think someone had posted. I don't know the origins. I didn't really pay super close attention. I just saw the aftermath of it, and I essentially what I think happened is someone said that it was going to cost $20 for a burrito at like Chipotle or something like that.
Yep.
And then people are like, well, I can make a burrito at home for $3 or something like that. They're just arguing back and forth, and the MAGA people are like, it doesn't cost that much. You're just buying stuff you don't need, right? And Ben Shapiro really went on the people about affordability and how, the burritos don't really cost $20. And if you're buying a $20 burrito, you're being irresponsible, right?
Think about Isaiah. Think about this. Think if you're middle-class person, let's say you're a woman with a baby at home and you don't have life insurance. You don't have anything of this nature because you're just getting your life started out and your husband dies. Okay. Now you're making $20 an hour and you have to drive 20 minutes to get to your job and you've got a 1-year-old baby at home. Just think about this scenario. You're going to pay roughly $350 to $400 a month to get back and forth to work. And you're going to have to pay a babysitter who knows how much. You can't survive.
Yeah.
It's not possible to live in America. People just are not recognizing that this is going down in our country, and they don't have any empathy whatsoever for these situations. And they happen all the
to me
time.
is people work, Rob. People go to work, and one of the like in a family of two, right? Two parents.
Yep.
One of their salary is just simply paying for childcare.
Absolutely. 100%.
Because it costs so much money now.
Yes. What is it? What is it a month to put your child in childcare if both parents got to work all day long? What's that cost? I don't even know what that costs.
I
should get that
I think it's about $1,000 a week.
Think about that.
I think you could probably find somewhere cheap. Probably that's like $350 a week, but it's probably not going to be the quality of place that you would want to put your kid. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's happening in our country. That's what's so funny. It's like I always say, the people that are they got their windows down, right? They've got the convertible, music's on, you got your hot wife next to you and her hair's flowing in the wind, you got your favorite band on, you got a little picnic going on, you're driving, but you're heading off a cliff. You don't recognize that everybody on the side of the street's going, slow down, the cliff is right there, the cliff is right there. And you're like, leave me alone. I can't even hear the song with this idiot screaming. And they call you the bad guy for saying, wait a minute, this actually is happening.
Yeah.
You're the black pillar. You're the no fun guy. You're this and the other. I'm saying, well, then I guess you're going to have to drive off the cliff before you see it. But when you drive off the cliff, it's too late. And all we're saying is before we drive off the cliff, can we possibly get together and make this government work for us before it's too late? Because at some point, I don't know how long it's going to take, but at some point it's going to be too late. That's just the reality. It's not black pilling. It's not being a bad guy. It's not trying to scare people. It's just saying this is the awareness that we need to have a government of, by, and for the people. You got to remember, it's of, by, and for the people. And we don't
That's what Charlie Kirk said, Rob.
Exactly what Charlie Kirk said. That's exactly what Charlie Kirk said. Did everybody think that Charlie Kirk was this miserable human being that was locked up in his closet with sucking his thumb in the dark? No. They liked Charlie Kirk because he was explaining to them what was going on in the world, and his opinions were evolving as circumstances around the world began to change. And he was telling people, hey, we got a real problem going on here. Maybe we should pay attention to it. And he said, when you stop asking questions, you stop being free. That was one of his lines. When you stop asking questions, you stop being free. Where are the questions from our media? Where are they? Where are the questions from our media about the Federal Reserve, about endless war, about property taxes and legitimacy of property taxes. Where are those conversations? Where are real conversations on your corporate television sets? You're never going to have them because they're designed to sell you on issues that you'll get emotionally attached to, but they don't change your life one iota.
Yeah,
None.
Benny Johnson will have Eric Burleson on to talk about aliens, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the aliens one. That one's my favorite. All right, so a little advertising here, and then I want to finish up with Donald Trump and the Argentina beef.
Yeah.
Because I think Donald
Good
Trump is
story.
becoming more recognizable that he's not gonna do everything
Did you
his.
see Mark Alford come out against it? He's
Did he?
yeah, he was saying it's not the answer. This is not what we need because he's got a lot of beef production in his district there. So a lot of farmers, cattle farmers, things like that. So I think that if you just look at what the farmers are saying, they're not for it, and then the administration is saying this is the best thing ever. You can't deny what the farmers are saying. That's no one will deny what the farmers are saying.
Can I give you how?
Except for Trump.
Can I give you how powerful Donald Trump is?
Yeah.
Donald Trump can tell you the elections are stolen.
Yeah.
Do nothing about it. He can. They can run cryptocurrency con jobs. He can sell his tweets before they go out because they affect the stock market. Right? He can tell everybody that he's going to get rid of all illegal immigrants and then say, except for hospitality and farming. He can tell you the Epstein files are a big deal and then tell you it was a Democrat hoax. He can do all of these things and people will not see it. As Marina Abramovich said, he is the grandmaster magician. And no matter how many times you say it, no matter how much information you give to people, they will think I am a complete lunatic Dumbo because I do not understand the genius of Donald Trump. That's just the way it is. And I understand that. I'm not going to change anybody's opinion. Somebody said you can't change the media. I'm not trying to change the media themselves. I'm trying to make sure that people recognize that the media they've been paying attention to far too long needs to stop. You need to cease. You shouldn't even, I always say, you can't take a little bit of heroin and be okay.
Yeah.
If you
If you turn it off, then they don't have the viewers, and then they can't get the ratings, they can't get the advertisers, and then no one can watch them.
If you turn it off, they don't have the influence. Forget even how the financial systems work, because I think it's probably, like I said.
Well, that's just why they're doing it, is because
right. But you just turn them off so they don't have the influence. If you take away their influence, then all of a sudden people start going, how do I get real information in the world? Well, you get real information from people. The reason I read the advertisers off every day, because everybody in my life thinks I'm making money on the platforms, Isaiah. And I said, no, I'm advertiser based, and I'm advertiser based for a reason. I'm advertiser based because, number one, I didn't have a choice at the beginning. So let's just put that out there and be honest about it. I didn't have a choice. But the reason I like the advertiser based operation is because my advertisers have lots of customers. Once we start communicating, not just me and Valvoline, who I'm getting ready to read, but Valvoline customers start to understand what we're doing. Grace Hauling customers start to understand what we're doing. It builds a bigger network. And once you build that big network and you start talking amongst yourself and you start going, yeah, you know what? Robb might be onto something. Robb said that they were going to put masks on us and stick needles in our arm by mandate. He ended up being right. Robb said that nothing was going to change, that the corporate world was going to get bigger and stronger and your small businesses were going to suffer more and more and more and more. And he's turned out to be right. Right. Once you start to see independent news start to predict things that become true and it starts to change your perception of what the news is, then all of a sudden we can have real conversations about the fix. You can't have a real conversation about the fix when you're watching Fox News, who's talking about aliens and spy balloons. Can't do that. Salacious nonsense. The Muslims are, what the guy say? There's Mark Mitchell said the Muslims have 1% of our population, and that's all we're talking about. Yeah. Maybe let it get to 2% before we start freaking out that they're going to take over America.
Yeah.
Because by the time they would take over America, they would be Americanized. Right? Because we fought with the Italians, the Irish, the Africans, everybody that's come here at some point had problems with our society. But then they become Americanized and you don't talk about them anymore. Then the new ones come. That's how this system is devised. That's how it works. But 1% of our society is Muslim. They're not taking over the world. Relax. Let it get to 2 before we freak out. Can it get to 2% before we all lose our minds? This is just propaganda. That's all it is. I'm not saying that radical Islam isn't a problem. Of course, I think that it is.
Yeah.
But it's not, right now, let's make sure that the government doesn't steal our property before we worry about the Muslims. Is that okay? Can we worry about that first? Is that fair? Yep. I think it's fair.
Yep.
All right. Valvoline. Let's do Valvoline. And then I'll get to the Argentinian beef. Then we got to get out of here. Valvoline Express Care. Again, when it's time for an oil change, it's always Valvoline Express Care. This is our good friend Tony Clark. 15 minutes from bay to on your way. No sales pressure, no appointments, absolutely no nonsense whatsoever. Valvoline Express Care and Isaiah, the guy, offers coupons. Valvoline-expresscare.com. Valvoline-expresscare.com. Go there, get yourself some coupons, and then go out to his locations. Got to get Tony Clark's locations, which are Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Highland, Illinois, Troy, Illinois, Lemay Ferry Road, Warrenton, Missouri, Mid Rivers Mall Drive, St. Peter's Parkway. Get out there, get yourself an oil change. As Isaiah says, not me. Isaiah's a little bit more militant about it. If you do not have that sticker in your window, Isaiah does not like you. And he's out front about it. He goes, if I see somebody's window and they don't have that Valvoline Express Care sticker in it, I can't like them. And I'll talk to him. I'll look at him. I'll have a conversation with him. But secretly, I don't like them.
September 18th, not allowed unless you have that
I think you said hatred, but I don't want to go that strong. But you said, I just don't like these people. I don't understand what they're doing. All right. Then we have ratcustomcoatings.com. This is our friend Rich McQuay. Again, this is flooring, and this is for industrial spaces. This is for retail spaces. This could be for your garage, but it is a better product at a better price. So consider it. It's epoxy, I think is what I always think I'm saying it wrong, but it's epoxy. Yep. And look what he can do with it, especially if you're somebody who makes decisions on school flooring. I think he just did Duchesne High School or one of the Duchesne schools, and it just looks absolutely amazing. He's got their logo, and they can really do some special things with it. The artwork is unbelievable. It's durable. It lasts. He's a patriot. He's in the game with us. RAK-CustomCoatings.com, R-A-K, CustomCoatings.com, R-A-K, CustomCoatings.com. My buddy that just died, Isaiah, I was talking about it yesterday with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
He is the one that convinced me to do it in my garage way back when I lived at when I was rolling, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And he did the 4-car garage and he laid it out there. And I remember coming home from a business trip, open up the garage and I saw the floor and I'm like, man, that looks amazing.
Wow.
So from that point forward, I just like it.
Mm-hmm.
Rich starts talking to me about doing advertising with me. And I said, man, you should be doing everybody's garage. When you build a home, that should just be a part of your home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not expensive. It's just a little add-on to your home. And then you have your flooring covered. It looks fantastic. You maybe put your family, whatever, put your name on it, whatever, and you open up your doors and you see this clean garage floor that's got some kind of artwork on it. It's amazing. And I don't know why my wife says a ton of people are doing it in Florida. I don't know how many people are doing it in Missouri, but if you haven't seen what they can do, you should check it out. RAKCustomCoatings.com, locally owned and operated. Family owned and operated since 2001. My buddy Rich McQuay, 636-398-5040, 636-398-5040. And then we have, of course, Rick Bavitz, who will be on tomorrow. I got to get everybody in tomorrow. He's supposed to have 2 hours tomorrow. We might have to.
Oh, man, it's a lot.
Run him
show.
Yeah, we got a lot of people on tomorrow. Carrington Financial, yourcaringadvisor.com, yourcaringadvisor.com. That's my man, Rick Bavitz. Again, not a cookie cutter financial advisor. If you're nearing retirement, if you have money to protect, if you have money to save, you want to get with a genius. You don't want to get with these big firms all the time. Get with somebody who has a little different perspective on your money, understands the risk, understands what you're trying to get done, and he'll coach you from A to Z on how you should grow your money. His name is Rick Bavitz. 314-671-0525. You can check him out every Tuesday on the show, generally at 11, might be a little earlier tomorrow. But you can get a measure of the man. Just pay attention to what he has to say on the show. Tell me what you think. 314-671-0525. He's done amazing, absolutely amazing work for me and my wife. So I recommend him very highly from a personal standpoint. Yourcaringadvisor.com. And by the way, before that, Isaiah, I was with Prudential. That's who controlled my money.
I was wondering who. I remember you telling me. I was trying to explain it to someone the other day. Actually, Bella's grandpa. I was telling him about Rick Bavitz. And I was I can't remember who. I was like, I can't remember who Rob was with. It was someone like Fidelity or a well-known one. Basically,
I made more money in 6 months with Rick Bavitz than I did in the previous 5 years when I was with the company. That's just what happened, right? And the stock market's been rolling for a long time. So don't just say it's a stock market. It's how you manage your money. Rick Bavitz, 314-671-0525. All right. I want to play this last clip of the day. Might talk about it a little bit tomorrow with Ashley Awney, get her take on it. Ashley Awney joins us tomorrow. She's a bigwig in the Democrat Party here in the state of Missouri. But I just watched how Donald Trump answered this question. And again, I asked my Donald Trump fans, explain it to us. We got the whole chat there, and I'll read it off if you can explain this to us. He is saying that we need to import beef from Argentina, and the cattle ranchers, people in the business of beef production, they don't want our meat coming from Argentina. They're going to undercut our farmers. And again, I thought it was America first. If it's America first, don't you protect American farmers, Isaiah? Don't you break up some of these monopolies?
Mhm.
That's what Mark Mitchell talked about. He said, you know what? Monopolies are the problem. Well, of course. Where are the antitrust laws? They have all these huge monopolies everything in America is now owned by a big monopoly. Look at Vanguard, State Street, and BlackRock. I mean, they basically own 80% of the America's wealth.
Yeah.
And nobody says, well, we should break them up. No. Let them get bigger. Let them get bigger. It'll be great. It's going to work out great for you. Don't worry about it. It's going to be awesome. Everybody knows that's not true. Everybody knows it, but they don't do anything. It's very I guess if you know about it, you know what's going to happen in the future. But
Yeah, I had to drive through a lot of
incredible.
old small towns. I have to drive through a bunch to get to Bella's grandparents up there by Mark Twain Lake. And I was just telling Bella, I was like, man, this makes me so sad just to drive through here and see all these family stores that don't exist anymore because of big business, because Walmart is, even 45 minutes away, right? It doesn't have to be 5 minutes away. It's, oh, Walmart's 45 minutes away. I'm just going to drive there because I can get everything I need in one trip. Instead of going to Sally's and then Joe's and then Billy's, I'll just go to Walmart, or go to Sam's Club or Costco. And it was, I was telling her, I said, man, if we didn't have that, all these towns would still be thriving because that's the only way we would be able to
That's right.
function. We'd only be able to rely on each other, and there would be no big corporate entity that would steal this business away from these families. And I was just telling her how it was making me sad just driving through there because
it is
you
sad.
can see it. You can just see it, with the dilapidated buildings and things. But
We stopped at Buc-ee's. You ever heard of this Buc-ee's place?
Of course, yeah.
So my wife and I were driving in from Florida into Missouri, and we stopped at Buc-ee's in Georgia. I actually took some video of it. Never seen anything like it.
Nice.
Never seen anything like it in my life. Now I've been to Buc-ee's a few times, but we stopped. It was about 11:30 in the morning on Saturday. We stopped in Georgia at a Buc-ee's.
Busy time.
It looked like a rock concert was going on. They have 9 billion places to get gas. They were all full. You go inside and it's just a madhouse of people buying food and this. And it was absolutely insane. I've never seen anything like it. And this is the American culture now. This is the American culture. You're not going to get your roast beef from your buddy down the street who's a farmer who's got a beef stand somewhere selling you roast beef, and now you get it at Buc-ee's. If you had my parents used to own, my mom's side of the family used to own candy stores back in the 40s and 50s, right? Candy, if you want candy, there's no candy stores anymore, right? Not locally owned candy stores. Now you're going to get your candy from Buc-ee's, right? You need beef jerky. You're not getting beef jerky from one of the farmers who's making. Now you're going to get a Buc-ee's, and they had everything, Isaiah. I mean, it was wonderful. I got to be honest with you, it's incredible. And I got a roast beef, or what did I get from there? A
brisket,
pulled pork. My wife said she got brisket. I got pulled pork.
Oh, the brisket's pretty good.
That's what she said. She said I made a big mistake with the pulled pork. She said she should have gotten brisket. She did tell me that. True story. But it is amazing, the consolidation of everything. I mean, I think at some point we're going to go into a shop and it's going to be like Nordstrom's, a hardware store. You're going to get your oil changed. You're going to get everything's going to be in one store. And
Amazon oil change, right?
It's going to be like the size of a small town, and you're going to go in there, and everything in your world will be there, and everything that you want will be there. And if you don't do what they want you to do, you're not going to be able to get in the door, and you won't be able to get anything because it'll all be under one roof. Kind of like Amazon, but it'll be like these. You can get your physical stuff in one of these big stores. That's the way the world will be at some point. It'll be
Sounds a lot like the mark of the beast to me that's described in Revelation.
It'll be 4 miles in circumference, right? You'll get a little cart when you get in, and it'll say automotive. If you need anything for your car, it'll be in that section about 1.5 miles down the road to your right.
Yeah.
If you want to get any kind of beef, it'll be over here to the left, and it'll all be under one roof. And that's the way these central planners want it. They want the consolidation of power so that we're all shopping at Amazon and Walmart. That's what they want. That's what's happening. That's why they didn't close Amazon and Walmart when they closed your pizzeria.
Yeah.
During COVID. Didn't you notice? You didn't notice that at all, anybody? You didn't notice they kept the Walmart and Targets open and the Best Buys, and they kept Amazon open.
Yep.
And they shut down all of your stores, and they said that was for your health. And you went, seems kind of odd. I wonder why they'd be open and I can't be open.
Yeah.
Seems kind of weird. Well, if it doesn't make sense, it makes sense. Okay. All right. Let's do Trump and Argentina, because
Argentinian beef makes sense.
I want somebody to make sense of this for me, because I don't get it. Clip number 2. Now listen to what the question is, and then listen to how Donald Trump answers the question. That's really what I want to get to. Is the question valid? And then you tell me the response, whether that's valid or not. Clip number 2.
What do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, as they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money, they have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can, but don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
What do you mean by being?
Does that make any sense to you, Isaiah? Now, when I look at that, I would normally have get a little crazy. That brings my blood pressure up when I see that, because America First is what he ran on.
Yeah.
And he's right there telling you we're going to buy beef from Argentina, which is going to lower the price so American farmers
They're fighting for their life.
Right. So they consolidate the beef and chicken industries in the United States. And then in order to bring down the prices, they're going to bring it in from Argentina instead of breaking it up in America so that everybody has a piece of the pie.
Oh, okay. That makes
Right?
sense.
All the answers are back asswards, as they like to say. All of the answers don't make any sense. If you want one more time I want to get this to the Republican Party. You know some people in the Republican Party. Maybe get this to some of your people out there in the Republican Central Committee out there in Franklin County. If you want to get rid of illegal immigration, let me give you a little hint right here. Ready, Isaiah? If you want to get rid of illegal immigration, I'm going to whisper it because I want you to tell them. I don't want to tell them because they won't listen to me. Maybe they'll listen to you. If you want to get rid of illegal immigration in the United States, put their employers in prison if they use them as workers. Done.
Whoa.
Watch how fast it happens.
Oh
It's
my
amazing
God.
how it's going to work. What you'll find is if people come into your country and they can't make a living, they're going to leave. They're not going to come. That's all you got to do. You don't need ICE all around the country. You don't need that. All you need to do is say, if we catch you employing somebody, harboring somebody, allowing somebody to live with you, giving them a job, giving them a driver's license, allowing people that are in this country illegally, if you harbor them and we find out, you're going to prison for 10 years. And like magic, probably within 6 months, all of the illegal immigration would go bye-bye. That's all you got to do. You don't need ICE. You don't need all the nonsense. You just need to not be a con artist. That's all you got to do. Just don't be a con artist for a minute. Think of how it works. People come to this country because they want to survive. They want our money. They want our wealth. They want our financial system. They want our education system. They want these things in our country. If you don't allow them to have it, there's no reason to come. Could not be any more simple. You could figure this out. 4 12-year-olds could figure this out if they put their brain power together, but the Republican Party just can't figure it out. Same with the elections. Simple fixes. They just can't do it. It's nauseating at some point, Isaiah. It's time for lunch any day but Monday. Where are we going? We're going to Moe's Pizza, a landmark in Franklin County. Moe's Pizza. That does sound good. I had some pizza yesterday. I'm ready for some more. Moe's Pizza in Washington, Missouri. As I like to say, and he likes to say, I think now, a landmark in Washington, Missouri. When it's time for lunch, you get out there to Moe's Pizza, get their delicious pizza and salad bar, or just get a pizza to go. Doesn't matter to me. What do they have? Who delivers the food for them? What is it now that they
DoorDash.
DoorDash. They take DoorDash.
Yeah, they even got gluten-free pizzas, Rob. I don't know if you know that.
Come on now.
Yeah, my wife is celiac, so she can't eat gluten, and so she gets a gluten-free pizza made every time we go there.
Absolutely. But I want to remind people why the Republican Party can't fix illegal immigration. Zigzag's got it all figured out. Farmers want cheap slave labor. They all want cheap slave labor. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And who benefits from cheap slave labor? The corporations. Who runs the world? The corporations. That's why the Democrats will give you a reason why we have to have illegal immigration, because they like the social safety net and the votes, apparently. And then the Republicans say, well, we can't get rid of all illegal immigrants because we need the hospitality workers and we need the farmers. The Americans wouldn't do those jobs.
Yeah.
Just couldn't do it. There's no way. I mean, if you paid $50 an hour, maybe they might do it, but they're not going to do it now. So we have to bring in these third world people to be in the slaughterhouses, to be in the farms, and to vacuum your floor at the Hyatt Hotel.
I think Mike and Brenda got it figured out, though.
How did we live before that, Isaiah? I wonder.
Yeah. Well, Mike and Brenda, they just got teenagers working these jobs.
And great teenagers, by the way.
Yeah. I think that's a great way.
Right. When you go to Moe's Pizza, the people that work there are friendly and they're intelligent and they present themselves well, because Mike and Brenda run a tight operation out there at Moe's Pizza. Again, Moe's Pizza in Washington, Missouri. I love them. If you have any kind of get together, banquet space available for birthday parties, anniversaries, political meetings, and Bible studies, it is Moe's Pizza. God owns the place. He just works there. There they are. Lovely Mike and lovely Brenda. That's all we got for you today, Isaiah. I think that's it. And we're going to do, you got to set me up because
That's a wrap, Jack.
Yep. I'm going to interview Bishop Joseph Strickland.
Yes.
So if you're Catholic and you're curious about, this is going to be a great interview, by the way. I don't even know what questions to ask. I might have to get you, I've got people sending me questions that I might ask this guy. But again, the Pope took his archdiocese away from him. And because he didn't buy into some of the things that were being said, and they took it away from him. So I'm anxious to hear what he has to say.
It's like a modern Martin Luther kind of Reformation kind of guy.
The people that I like love him, and the people that see the world for what it is love him. So I'm very anxious to have this conversation with him, and then that will air sometime tomorrow. We'll get that all figured out here in just a bit. So we'll see you again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on the Robb Carter Show. Isaiah, have a great day, and we'll talk to everybody again soon.
See you guys.
Stay out of trouble.